Everybody grab their seats, please. Okay, welcome to Budget and Tax. Looking forward to hearing from you all. We have 23 bills today, just a little agenda. We want to hear what you have to say, but if you could keep it brief and to the point, which I know you all will. And we do have a clock that you'll see on the monitor. You'll hear a little beep when you have 10 seconds left, and then you'll hear a louder beep when your time is up. Certainly finish your thought. And that's the whole thing set for 2 minutes. And that's about it. No other rules. Well, so the lineup is as it is out on the screen out there. So that is the order that we're doing them in. We're going to start with Departmental Bill 259. Secretary. By the way, and I guess there's not a lot of the members here yet, but when the senator comes up to do the presentation, if you're part of their panel, come up right away and just sit down at the table with the senator, assuming that you're in favor of their bill. So, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Gazzoni and Vice Chair Rosa Peppa, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Josh Kurtz. I'm the Secretary of the Department of Natural Resources, and I'm here testifying in support of SB 259. I'm being joined by Paul Petito, our Assistant Secretary for Land Resources, and Sandy Olick, who's the Director of our Office of Outdoor Recreation, to give me any help on technical questions that you may all have. Before I jump into this piece of legislation, I just wanted to start with a thank you to this committee, to the legislature, to Sarah Elfreth, the sponsor. This was a historic investment in our state parks and our natural resources for all Marylanders. And we're just thrilled to be able to work in partnership with you all to implement this bill. The department's been working tirelessly to ensure that we are able to meet every provision of that bill. And today we wanted to talk a little bit about some areas where we're going to need and hopefully get some additional flexibility. I think the important thing for us when we evaluate this bill and how we're working on it is it's fundamentally rooted in access and equitable access. And so that's what we're trying to achieve in our implementation. So there's a couple of things that this bill does. I'm just going to run through really quickly. First, the bill will expand the Great Maryland Outdoors Fund, which goes to the Office of Outdoor Recreation in the department, and will make allowable use for some education programming. And the reason we're looking to do that is what we know is that outdoor recreation and outdoor education go hand in hand in helping people want to support our natural resources, use our natural resources, and feel comfortable in our natural resources. So what we're looking to do is really pair those two things and really help us continue to stay and be a national leader, not only on outdoor recreation, but on outdoor education. The second thing this bill will do is delay for 1 year the comprehensive long-term strategic plan that was required for the state parks for GMOA. And the reason we're looking to do this is because our LPRP plan, which is our much larger kind of strategic plan looking at land acquisition, starts in 1 year. And so we want to align those two together so that when we're thinking about acquisition, we're thinking about management of these land resources, we can do that while also looking at the strategic plan for the parks. The third thing that this bill does is it seeks to extend the requirement to spend the critical maintenance money from 2026 to 2029. Currently, we're spending roughly between $4 and $10 million annually on our critical maintenance funding. And by giving us this extension, it allows us to make sure that we're spending that money wisely and we're actually able to spend all of it and spend it on some of the most important projects, which can take some time. The last piece of this is that it makes two key adjustments to the capital improvement and acquisition fund. So right now in statute, the money can only go to state park projects, and our proposed language in the legislation would allow it to go to state lands that are managed by the department. And the reason that we're looking at this is one of the issues we've had in the state parks is that we have a massive increase in visitorship, which is a good thing. But it makes it much more difficult to manage those properties. So what we're looking to do is be able to apply some of this money to other lands managed by the department, natural resource management areas, wildlife management areas, for access. So for example, in Prince George's County, we have Merkel Wildlife Sanctuary, which is a space that can really accommodate more visitorship. And by being able to have this flexibility, we'll be able to invest in projects that increase our ability to successfully access those projects. And so when we evaluate these, we'll be looking at parks that are kind of overburdened and where we have other complementary land units close by that we could increase the access on. Lastly, this bill would also provide us some flexibility in the spending. It would allow up to $30 million for land acquisition, and at least for the other buckets that are in there, like historic preservation. And the reason we're looking at that flexibility is it's really hard to spend exactly $30 million on land acquisition. By having this language, it'll give us more flexibility if we're not able to achieve that 30 million to be able to spread some of that money out into the other buckets, still focusing on making sure that we have a world-class park system and a world-class access to all of our land resources for all Marylanders. So that is in a nutshell what the bill does, why we're looking for this legislation to be passed. I really appreciate the time today. I would urge a favorable report, and we are here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Secretary? Else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and thank you and your team for being really transparent through this process. I know there's been some challenges getting the money out the door, certainly not possible the aggressive timeline we set for you originally. I think a piece of that is procurement challenges. Can you speak a little bit to that? And if there's anything that you need from us to help alleviate that particular challenge?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And procurement has been a challenge, but at the same time, I think we've done a couple things differently. One, we've actually been able to staff up in our own E&C, which is something in construction, but it's escaping me. Engineering, that's the E word. Ooh. So we've staffed up in our engineering and construction unit, and we've also been working really closely with DGS to get them to kind of understand and see the projects well in advance. So we think that's really going to help us with the pipeline, especially if we're able to kind of spread it out into the future, to really give them kind of the holistic view. So once we get into that contracting piece, they have a better understanding what we're trying to achieve.
And do you need anything from us to help alleviate? There's a 250,000, I believe, threshold.
Yeah, that's something I'd be happy to look into. I know some of our trail, a lot of the trail projects we're looking at are in that like 250 to 500 range. So that could help us move projects more quickly. I'd be happy to follow up on that.
Okay. Mr. May, one more. Thank you. I think a piece of this is giving some folks some heartburn around use of the funds outside of state parks. Would you be open to a clarifying amendment to make sure that the money is still going towards public access? To your point, I just think we can be a little clearer to help alleviate the pressure on existing state parks.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd be happy to do that. I think that is the intent. You know, what we're trying to do is give us more flexibility to just look at those other land units, especially ones that are close in proximity to ones that are extremely busy. So we would be, I would see that as a very favorable amendment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions? Secretary, thank you.
Thank you.
What's that? Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Hellman.
But just a quick question. Can you talk specifically about some of the properties that you're talking about having covered that weren't otherwise?
Yeah, so what we've seen is several of our, especially in our central region parks, be really heavily visited, Patapsco, Gunpowder, and we've got other parks like Soldier's Delight, which is a natural environmental area. So that wouldn't right now be able to get some of these funds to help us with access to alleviate some of that pressure from those parks. I think, a McKee-Besher in Montgomery County to help alleviate Seneca. There's several of them, actually. I think that gives us the opportunity. I'm also thinking about where we don't have state parks is important, right? We've got a lot of forest land on the lower Eastern Shore. So how can we apply these funds there to give more equitable access to our state lands?
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We have one unfavorable, Mr. Bariano.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. For the record, Bruce Berriano. I'm here on behalf of the Maryland Rangers Association. As some of you know, seriously, I've been around for a very long time. And in all my years here, not until 2022 was there ever such a monumental, phenomenal, committed piece of legislation passed like the GMOA. And this committee, not just Senator Elfreth, but also Derek and Eric Galutke, who is now in the governor's office, and this whole committee and its companion in the House deserve enormous credit. Never has the parks of our state, the rangers that work in there, my clients, been given such attention and commitment by the legislature. And regretfully, 2 years later, this commitment is being broken by this piece of legislation. It's wrong. It's just wrong. And I'm keeping my voice down. I am. Money was committed not to be touched that is desperately needed in the state parks. Repairs, acquisitions, expansions. I have the greatest respect for the secretary. I work with him on a number of other matters. He's a fabulous new secretary of the Department of Natural Resources. But this committee lauded, rightfully so, and the members, how important the GMOA was. But you're breaking your promise. You're allowing monies to be used for other purposes. Yes, public purposes, but not for the existing parks that so desperately need repair and need expansion and modernization. If there's a need for more further access and what have you, and I'm not arguing that, put in more money. But don't raid something that 2 years ago you made a commitment. And I mean that. I'm not trying to do a guilt trip, but it's true. The legislature made a commitment, signed into law by the governor, and it's going to be broken by this. Because monies, I'll just end, monies are going to be diverted. Legislature's not going to have real control over it. And what was intended by GMOA is not going to be accomplished. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you for hearing me.
Okay, we're gonna move on to Senator King. 376. I know you got a lot of supporters out there. Bring them on up. So many presidents in one place.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, the University of Maryland Strategic Partnership Empowering the State combines the resources of the state's largest public research engines, the University of Maryland, Baltimore, and the University of Maryland College Park. Since the Empower Partnership was originally launched in 2012, Empower has fostered hundreds of collaborations that are growing Maryland's innovation economy, advancing interdisciplinary research, increasing educational benefits, and addressing the state's most critical issues. We come to you today with the latest strategic initiative of Empower, the University of Maryland Institute for Health Computing. This cooperative effort of UMB and UMCP in partnership with University of Maryland Medical System, Montgomery County, and collaborators at the universities at Shady Grove and the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, will use transformative medical research, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and other emerging technologies to improve healthcare in Maryland. And my esteemed panel is anxious to tell you more about this exciting new collaboration. Senate Bill 376 will provide supplemental funds to Empower to help in the development of this world-class innovative initiative. And I respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 376.
Greetings and good afternoon. My name is Bruce Gerald. I'm president of the University of Maryland, Baltimore. I want to thank Senator King for her great leadership on this, and I want to thank the chair, the vice chair, and the members of this committee for your support. The University of Maryland Institute for Healthcare Computing was envisioned to improve the health of the citizens of Maryland. And this is possible because of the deep expertise you will hear about in computing at College Park, in healthcare at the University of Maryland, Baltimore, in electronic medical records at the University of Maryland Medical System, and in collaboration with Montgomery County. In 2021, an MOU was signed between the University System of Maryland, the Montgomery College and Montgomery County, with the aim to facilitate collaborations between our three entities and the Montgomery County business and federal agency community. This was also aimed to provide students with many opportunities both to learn workforce type of needs as well as new information and participate in research. This 2021 MOU proposed a center of excellence that would be seated in Montgomery County with our faculty sitting next to colleagues from industry, from federal agencies, from other universities, and other interested parties. This is now about that center that we agreed to. It now exists and people are working there, sitting in seats, beginning to collaborate. There are 4 partners in this: the University of Maryland, Baltimore, the University of Maryland, College Park, the University of Maryland Medical System, and Montgomery County. All have provided significant resources. Montgomery County has committed $40 million to this project over 5 years. Empowering the state, UMB and College Park have committed $30 million over a 5-year period. The University of Maryland Medical System has contributed a multi-million-dollar electronic health record database as part of this. And the Maryland Congressional delegation also committed $3 million for equipment. So we are excited about this. Want to thank the General Assembly for its support. There have been some capital planning dollars, which we greatly appreciate, and the full commitment to this. So I will now turn this over to President Darrell Pines.
Good afternoon, Chair Gazzoni, Vice Chair Rosapep, and distinguished members of the committee. I am here, Darrell Pines, President of University of Maryland College Park, in favor of Senate Bill 376. This bill will provide crucial support for an initiative that we believe will make our state a national pioneering leader for the next generation of a healthcare model. We're calling this combined entity the University of Maryland Institute for Healthcare Computing. Located in North Bethesda, the IHC is a collaboration through the Empowering State Initiative that was approved by this body approximately in 2011-2012 timeframe for the benefit for the citizens of the state of Maryland. Again, you heard the partnership from my colleague Bruce Gell, which is 4 entities: University of Maryland College Park, University of Maryland Baltimore, University of Maryland Medical System, and the Montgomery County, to leverage advances in artificial intelligence and health data to help diagnose, prevent, and treat disease. The IHC will do the following: improve quality of life and longevity for all Maryland citizens. Number 2, attract and grow industry partners. Number 3, discover new ways to address social determinants of health. Number 4, solve pressing and existential problems of health inequity. And number 5, build new entities to improve health on a large scale. Last summer, Governor Wes Moore told the Maryland Association of Counties that the state needed to prioritize our spending in a way that strengthens our economic engine, not just for now, but for the future of all Marylanders, and leaves no Marylander behind. So with your support, this legislation and investment in the IHC will do just that by making Maryland not only a supercluster of high-tech innovation and economic impact, but also the foundation of a new and healthier future for every citizen of the state of Maryland and potentially the nation. So I thank you for your time and consideration. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. My name's Dr. Mohan Santha. I'm privileged to serve as the president and CEO of the University of Maryland Medical System. We, as the University of Maryland Medical System, are a private, nonprofit academic health system, and we represent the fact that we deliver 25% of all hospital-based healthcare in the state of Maryland as the medical system. Our foundational partners in our mission have historically been the University of Maryland, Baltimore, and specifically the University of Maryland School of Medicine. One of the strengths we bring to this unique partnership is the rich diversity of the communities that our health system is blessed to serve. When you think about who we are as a health system, we are everything from academic healthcare in urban-based environments like the city of Baltimore. We are transforming healthcare in Prince George's County. We are rural healthcare on the mid-shore. We deliver healthcare in counties like Hartford County, Charles County, Anne Arundel County. And the reason that that is important to this conversation is that when you think about the unique 2 million patients that we serve across our health system, the data from this experience provides an unique asset to the conversation and to the idea of developing a learning health system that will inform how we think about healthcare in the future, not just for the state of Maryland, but in fact, the nation. The medical system is proud to bring $500 million of investment in our electronic health record across our system. We're proud of bringing the assets of human talent in our data analytics resources that the health system utilizes today as we take on that mission of academic medicine. And so simply put, when we think about the responsibility of being an academic health system, we think about the responsibility of imagining and inventing the cures of tomorrow while we're delivering care of today. And a point I will make that my friend Dr. Pines just highlighted is one of the foundational reasons we exist is to address historic health inequities across our communities that we serve. And when you think about using data to inform the evolution of how we think about addressing health equity, this is part of the foundational contract that the state of Maryland has with the federal government when it comes to the unique reimbursement model that exists in the state of Maryland. And so, again, we believe that the Institute of Healthcare Computing is a phenomenal asset that we need to leverage in the evolution of healthcare delivery. And so I'm going to, with that, turn it over to my colleague, Dean Gladwin.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Gladwin. I'm a physician scientist and the Dean of the University of Maryland School of Medicine. I just want to quickly share with you 2 stories that highlight this historic opportunity. Firstly, we're facing a disruptive revolution in artificial intelligence that's now changing the practice of medicine overnight. A major risk of this revolution is the use of data from homogeneous patient populations to create algorithms for all populations. These new programs are not necessarily representative of diverse populations and may introduce major bias and even fabrication in healthcare models. We have a major opportunity and responsibility in the state of Maryland to ensure that these new systems are free of bias and serve all of our patients, regardless of color or socioeconomic status. Our 2 million diverse patients in Maryland allow us to develop and validate new technologies and ensure that we correct bias. Second, we have the major opportunity to leverage new technologies to bring life-saving therapies and new drugs and clinical trials to all the patients of Maryland, whether in West Baltimore or the Eastern Shore. For example, we're now launching programs that use data science to identify women who are newly pregnant and have hypertension that are at high risk for preeclampsia and high mother-baby mortality. We can identify patients across the state that are not being screened today for lung cancer and ensure that electronic consultation and patient navigation are provided for them and that they are screened. We can also use the awesome power of integrated data to address new generational challenges in medicine, like climate change, mental health, and the epidemic of dementia, and target new therapies to meet these challenges. For example, we recently analyzed air quality data from across the state using detector systems developed at College Park and linked these data through the Institute for Health Computing to confidential and de-identified patient records and found that during the wildfires from Canada last year, there were major spikes in hospitalizations for heart and lung conditions. In the future, we can target intervention to patients and zip codes, like asthma inhalers and mobile urgent care, to prevent hospitalization and prevent death. These data can also inform policy on larger effects of poverty and pollution on our citizens. Thank you. Dr. Varsh.
Right. Chairman Gazzoni, Vice Chairman Rosapep, and members of the committee, good afternoon. I'm Amitabh Varshney, Dean of the College of Computer, Mathematical, and Natural Sciences, and a Professor of Computer Science at the University of Maryland. I'm honored here to talk about this amazing new idea of the Institute of Health Computing that we are collectively putting forward. An investment in the Institute for Health Computing will improve not just the health of the Marylanders, but it'll also stimulate economic development and expansion in the life sciences sector throughout the state. As you already know, AI and other advanced computing is beginning to revolutionize medicine, healthcare, bioscience, and biotechnology. From personalized medicine, new drugs for disease prevention and curation, community health trends, life science companies are seeing AI and data-driven approaches as a priority area for investment. This institute will provide cutting-edge expertise in computation, artificial intelligence, virtual and augmented reality. It will be located right in the midst of a booming life science and biotechnology corridor in the state of Maryland, along with a number of federal agencies like NIH, FDA, NIST, and others. And it will support and nurture a pipeline of talented workforce from local community colleges, HBCUs, and the universities. Together, this will enable our state to emerge as a preeminent leader in AI and advanced computing-enabled healthcare and medicine. The growth and innovation that this institute will promote will be critical for the recruitment of venture capital from across the country and around the world here in the state of Maryland. In addition, it will serve to draw talent here in the state of Maryland. This job growth and the migration of companies and talent together will provide a very vibrant and diverse workforce here in the state of Maryland. Already, if you look at the diverse issues in higher education, University of Maryland College Park confers the most undergraduate degrees to African Americans among AAU Research One universities around the country in computer information sciences. It is also ranked #1 in the number of degrees to African Americans in mathematics and statistics, and is ranked #6 in biological sciences. An investment in this institute will help retain and educate these highly skilled graduates of our universities within the state. The time is now to take advantage of this burgeoning revolution that is unfolding and establish the state of Maryland as a leader in this vibrant, important economic sector. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you. And now I'll turn over to our dear friend, Tom Lewis from Montgomery County.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for giving me a chance to speak. On behalf of Montgomery County, we're strongly supporting this bill. Montgomery County, as you heard, put in committed $40 million to get this institute started. And why they did that was to leverage those assets that you've just heard about. In North Bethesda, there's a location on the metro, it's halfway in between NIH and all the thousands of federal researchers there, and the Shady Grove Life Sciences Cluster, which is one of the largest in the country, with all that private sector investment. And this is an opportunity to have this institute have these sort of dry labs, we've got some wet labs around that area, but also these are dry labs. This is computer generated results. And it's an opportunity to have those right in between those assets and really leverage that up. Now, we have a lot of assets across the state of Maryland in life science, in Baltimore, in Prince George's County, in Frederick, and you name it. We really have a lead in life sciences. But why put this investment here, the state investment, to add to the county investment and the university's investments? And I think it's in part because we really are competing, not just with other counties in places like Northern Virginia, but Northern Virginia in particular. We're competing with the state of Virginia. they've put in, when they won the competition for Amazon, they committed $100 million to higher education. Maryland had a bigger proposal, but it was mostly in transportation and other things. So they are really trying to outcompete us in life science, which we are one of the leaders nationally in. And this is a way we can get the state resources to support this as well. We really can up the game to compete, not just with Northern Virginia, but also with Boston area and California. So thank you for all that you do, and hope that you will support this bill. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator King, for bringing such a phenomenal bill, thinking about how we think about our future, but also doing it in partnership with our educational and health institutions. Dr. Santha, you spoke to artificial intelligence, AI. We got clear examples of how this will be able to help from that standpoint, but knowing that you're a leader and lover of an urban jurisdiction in Baltimore, like, is there one example that you would give specific from a health equity standpoint, how this would address things like that?
So thank you for the question, Senator. Maybe an example I can give you is today the medical system offers community-based grants to partners like to address issues such as food insecurity. We partner with Maryland Food Bank, Capital Food Bank, etc., in every community and jurisdiction that we exist in. The way historically you address those food insecurity amongst patients who seek care with us is the patient has to self-identify, and then we connect and partner with food banks to address food insecurity. We now have AI-based innovation that helps us actually identify and predict not just who is today at risk for food insecurity, but who, based on factors and use of AI, we can identify before they even know it, and then partner with them in advance, not requiring a patient to simply self-identify, but actually get out ahead of the curve. That's the use of artificial intelligence and use of data that helps inform where you most appropriately can apply resources to impact and address issues like health equity. And in Baltimore, as we know, there is some disproportionate challenge associated with food insecurity and food deserts, but it is not unique to Baltimore, I must say. We have similar sorts of partnerships in Prince George's County, on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, et cetera. And use of this type of innovation that is data-driven is really, I think, a phenomenal example of what we envision with these types of resources and how we'll use them.
$375.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My panel today consists of leaders of the University System of Maryland. But the bill before you today will help all state agencies, not just USM institutions. Over the past 10 years, vendors have become unwilling to change their boilerplate contract terms unless state contracting personnel can identify a statutory prohibition on certain contract terms, causing negotiations to drag out for months. Senate Bill 375 will streamline the contracting process for all Maryland agencies, significantly reduce personnel time and frustration for state personnel and vendors, and protect the state by reducing the risk of liability and litigation. I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 375. And I'm going to just turn it over to my panel now, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Jen Gartner. I'm the Deputy General Counsel at the University of Maryland College Park, where I support our research and land grant mission. I negotiate contracts with the university sponsors and vendors frequently. My clients negotiate them daily, as do their counterparts across the state. Many times, those negotiations do get bogged down for weeks or months because contractors do not understand that commercial terms are not appropriate for state agencies. Contractors do, in fact, ask us to point to a statute like this bill that shows that we're prohibited from accepting certain terms. And while there are some statutes and attorney general guidance and case law, it's not always clear. And it can take months to arrange a meeting between the attorneys, and then we have to argue statutory interpretation. We explain that the university is not authorized to waive the state's sovereign immunity by accepting, say, California governing law, because only the General Assembly can waive that sovereign immunity. We explain we're not authorized to waive jury trials because only the Attorney General can make litigation decisions. We explain that we can't indemnify in violation of appropriations laws. Doing so subjects our personnel to individual civil and criminal liability. And usually we are able to negotiate terms. But even so, it takes an extraordinary amount of time and it unnecessarily halts vital state initiatives. There are also times with click-through agreements where we cannot identify anyone who is available to negotiate terms, and these click-through agreements are disadvantage of the state. This bill, as Senator King says, will streamline the process for all Maryland agencies, not just the universities. It will reduce personnel time. It will provide clarity for our contractors who want to know what they're getting into when they negotiate with the state. I think it will also reduce the risk of liability and litigation for the state. I'd like to thank Senator King for supporting this bill. I respectfully urge this committee to have a favorable report on Senate Bill 375. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Arthur Rose. I'm University Counsel at the University of Maryland, Baltimore. We are the home of the 7 professional schools of the university system, including the University of Maryland School of Medicine, In my 20 years of negotiating contracts for the university, I've encountered this issue repeatedly, over and over and over again. We are almost always successfully able to negotiate successful resolution to these disputes, but like my colleague, Ms. Gardner said, it causes months and months of delay, not only for our office, but for the many, many contracting officers throughout our university, College Park, and throughout state agencies. The purpose of this bill is not to restate current law, not to change current law, but merely to clarify and to apply legal principles which prevail to this day. As Ms. Gardner said, oftentimes when negotiating these principles, when dealing with the other party, they would like to see clear statutory language, which requires what we are proposing. That language does not exist today. We have to go through a convoluted conversation about the state of Maryland's constitution, attorney general opinions, various statutes. The simplicity provided by this bill actually was modeled for us by the state of Ohio and the state of Georgia, who have adopted similar legislation. In their experience, it has tremendously streamlined their contracting processes. We don't anticipate that this would prevent or otherwise discourage companies from doing business with the state of Maryland. In fact, we think it would encourage them to provide clarity, provide certainty as to what they are contracting for. It has been raised concern that certain companies may not want to do business with the state, particularly contractors, builders. However, those entities will receive state contracts which do not contain the troublesome provisions that we are trying to address with this bill. So therefore, we see only an upside to this bill. We see that it provides clarity, efficiency, and will greatly enhance the protection of the state's budgetary processes. Thank you very much for your favorable consideration.
Thank you. Questions for the panel? Senator Benson?
Thank you very much. It is my understanding that according to the analysis, it says a state contract may not contain a provision by which the state agrees to binding arbitration or any other binding extrajudicial dispute resolution process. Could you elaborate on that for a few moments, please?
Sure, I'll take that one. Currently, the state is not disposed to a binding arbitration because binding arbitration prevents any sense of an appeal. Arbitration by its nature is arbitrary. Sometimes you can get an arbitrary arbitrator. We may disagree with the conclusion and have no right to appeal. So that unfairly prejudices the state in its potential disputes with contractors.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Thank you very much. One more
Thank you
witness.
for your time.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Briano?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Bruce Bariano. I'll be very brief. I'm here on behalf of ACE, the Alliance for Construction Excellence. I watched the hearing yesterday in the House, had some concerns, talked to the fine proponents, talked to my clients, and I'm here to support the bill. It makes a lot of sense. I do support some things.
Very good. All right, that concludes the hearing on that bill. As we continue the Nancy King show.
Does that mean they all pass?
Not all shows are, positive. 340.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. In 2020, legislation was passed that required homeowners to file a homestead property tax credit application in order to receive an income tax offset credit against their local property tax imposed on real property. This measure ensured that county funds committed to this tax credit were being issued only to principal residents, where in the past a credit would be issued to investment properties and second homes. The 2020 bill took effect on June 1st, 2022, and applies to taxable years beginning after June 30th, 2022. In Montgomery County, leadership made many efforts to inform citizens of the changes, but as with all changes, there were challenges for citizens and many missed out on being eligible for the offset credit. Senate Bill 340 is enabling legislation. Let me repeat that. It's enabling legislation that will allow counties who wish to extend the application from after June 30th, 2022 to before July 1st, 2025, allowing those residents additional time to file their homestead property tax credit application. And I ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 340.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gazzoni, Vice Chair Rosapep, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Michael Higgs, and I'm the Director of the Maryland Department of Assessments and Taxation. Senate Bill 340 would extend the effective date of HB 1200, passed in 2020, which used applications for the homestead tax credit to verify eligibility for local income tax offset credits. The department is continuing to update its woefully antiquated IT systems to accommodate the increased volume of applications for the homestead tax credits. Furthermore, the department has received an influx of inquiries from concerned residents who are receiving property tax bills that do not include this year's income tax offset credits and seek to claw back those for the previous year. Many residents in jurisdictions that have implemented HB 1200 are still unaware that they are required to have a homestead tax credit application on file to receive their local income tax offset credit. Senate Bill 340 would give any jurisdiction that implemented House Bill 1200 the option to extend the effective date of the bill to 2025 from 2022, allowing more time to educate the public and process the influx of homestead tax credit applications. We'd like to thank Senator King for this bill, and accordingly, the department respectfully requests a favorable report on Senate Bill 340.
So if an individual then applies and is verified, would a assessment that occurred a couple of years ago and the increases associated with that be subject to the homestead?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's part of the clawback provision, that some people are being asked to give back credits that they received in prior years based on not having a homestead application on file.
I see. Okay.
And given the very quick nature in which HB 1200 was implemented, and then the woeful state of technology that our agency is forced to deal with, it was a very tough match, and it's become a customer service nightmare in a lot of ways. And this bill would go an awful long way to help resolve that.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it. Okay, good. Thank you. Questions? Anybody else? Okay. All right. Senator Roosevelt. 328. Bring up your panel if you.
Yes, would my panel of supporters of this bill come forward and join me? Is there anybody supporting the bill? They signed up. They signed up.
Yeah, I've got 8 people signed up.
I know. I understand that, but maybe they changed their mind. I'll defer to you, Mr. Chairman.
I've never seen that before.
I've never seen that before either. I've never seen that before either. Well, I did urge them to be brief.
This will be brief.
So seriously, you want me to proceed?
Oh, please, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is a bill you're familiar with. We had a version of it last year. Basically, what it does is it requires an 8% increase annually for 3 years in the reimbursements to nursing homes. We all know the issue of nursing homes being able to hire people to take care of our relatives and neighbors. And it requires that 75% of the increase would have to go to pay the workers who are doing the work, doing patient care. It did not pass last year. There were negotiations between the proponents and the opponents. They didn't get to the finish line. They've had additional conversations earlier this year. And so you're going to have witnesses testifying in favor of the bill, and you have witnesses testifying against the bill, and they're going to continue talking. With that, I urge a favorable report.
Thank you very much. Has anyone showed up? Okay. All right, we're on to 95. Senator Carrozza. Oh, did I miss one? Oh, the opponents showed. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh. My apology. Okay. Diana.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I'm trying to be in multiple places at once today, so I apologize. So I am here on behalf of Public Justice Center. My name's Diana Jarek. I'm an attorney, and I am largely concerned with workers' rights issues. I assist workers in litigation to get their wages back when their employers keep them illegally. So we're in support of this bill. We serve many nursing home workers as well as home care workers at the Public Justice Center. As I'm sure you all know, this is a vital workforce. It's a publicly funded workforce. And unfortunately, currently these workers earn poverty wages. This is a common sense bill that really addresses 3 things. It ensures that Maryland's nursing home facilities retain their high quality care by keeping their high quality staff members. It ensures that these jobs that are publicly funded do not trap their workers into cycles of poverty by paying them poverty wages. And third, it ensures that that these dollars are responsibly stewarded. This is over $1 billion of money that we reimburse through Medicaid to nursing home facilities. And so the public should have an interest in seeing how those dollars are spent. And as other people showed how wonderful. And as a component of this bill, as well as increasing those wages, it also requires annual reports to be submitted to the Department of Health to document those wage disbursements to ensure that they go to workers' wages. And I will now cede to our real experts here at the table.
You can just give your name.
Sure. Dear Chair Gazzoni and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee, my name is Lorraine Arikat. I'm the Senior Policy Analyst for 1199 SEIU, United Healthcare Workers East. We're here today to support SB 328, legislation that is foundational to addressing the severe staffing crisis that's impacting quality of care in Maryland's nursing homes. This legislation aims to improve nursing home transparency, address the staffing crisis, and protect quality of care for nursing home residents by introducing a 8% rate increase for Medicaid provider reimbursements to skilled nursing facilities starting in 2026, while mandating a fair portion to be allocated towards direct care patient care staffing. We are ensuring that we know that good actors in Maryland are already doing this, but we also know that there are a lot of bad actors within the state who are not doing enough to invest in protecting quality of care. This legislation ensures that we're standardizing care across the state and ensuring that we're improving transparency and oversight of our skilled nursing facilities. Nursing homes rely mostly on public funding through Medicare and Medicaid, and yet stakeholders in Maryland lack the information necessary to identify how those public dollars are being used in our nursing homes. This bill is one that has been implemented in over 22 other states, including Massachusetts, New Jersey, Michigan, and Illinois. In Massachusetts, they have set a requirement minimum of 75% of nursing home revenues to be spent on direct care staffing costs. In states like North Carolina, they've devoted 80% of their rate increase to direct care staff wages. And we know that states like Michigan have even used ARPA dollars, American Rescue Plan Act funding money, and COVID pandemic relief to target the nursing home staffing crisis. In Maryland, those funding have been allocated to skilled nursing facilities, but have not been targeted to direct care workers. So in conclusion, this legislation is important and really essential for our total cost of care model and ensures that we're protecting quality of care. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Rhonda White. I'm a certified medicine aide at a long-term care facility and a union delegate for 1199 SEIU. I support SB 328, the Nursing Home Staffing Crisis Funding Act of 2024, and urge you to issue a favorable report. This bill would help fix the staffing crisis in nursing homes by increasing wages for caregivers like me. Healthcare workers made sacrifices on the front line of COVID-19. Some of us survived, others lost their lives or left healthcare. Those of us still working are dealing with a short staffing crisis. This was a problem before the pandemic, but it's even worse now. Our facilities are short-staffed because of the wages are too low. Recently, I was conducting a new hire orientation. When I told the new GNA what her wages would be, she told me she would be right back. Then I looked out the window and saw her driving away and never heard from her again. This is just one of many examples. In my facility, we have 1 GNA to 20 patients, so we can't spend enough time with our patients. We provide high quality health care, but can't be everywhere at once. This is bad for residents and for workers too. When we don't have enough workers, our mental and physical health suffers. We are stuck in a cycle of not having enough workers, so many workers burn out and quit. Then the short staffing cycle continues. Senators, you have the power to break this cycle. Vote yes on SB 328. Healthcare workers care for you. Please care for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Was there anyone else here to speak in favor of this bill?
We have some members in HGO right now, so they might not be able to make it in time.
Thank you.
But thank you.
Hello, members of the committee. My name is Brian Wyville with the Maryland State and DC AFL-CIO. Our healthcare system is in crisis with the impending silver tsunami of an aging population coming to Maryland and the rest of the country. It is of the utmost importance that we do everything we can to expand the healthcare workforce. It is bills like this that deal with wage pass-throughs that are probably one of the only targeted solutions we are able to do that will actually have a direct material impact on attracting people into this industry. This is an industry that is often referred to as underpaid and overworked, but the situation goes much further than that. There is almost zero impetus to join into the healthcare industry right now because, as was already brought up, if you are brought into that industry, you are going to be overworked and underpaid, and you might quickly find yourself burning out or seeking employment elsewhere. So we encourage this committee to look seriously at the idea of these wage pass-throughs to be able to bring more people into this industry and reward them for their work. Because if our Medicaid money is not being spent wisely, it is being wasted, and we are just spending good money after bad if we are not doing the necessary investments into this workforce to bring more people into the industry. So I urge all senators to issue a favorable report for Senate Bill 328, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Questions? Thank you all very much. Tammy. Ms. Breslin. Breslin. You're here to testify in favor?
I think so.
This girl is picking up momentum, Mr. Chairman.
Slowly but surely.
I think it's my age, and this is why this is my last session. I hate to tell you, I'm gonna retire in December, so that's gonna be he's glad, I'm sure. Yes, so we are here and we thank Senator Rosapep for putting in this very important bill. Everyone knows that the nursing home workforce is very important. I am Tammy Bresnahan with AARP. I'm the Senior Director of Advocacy, and we support Senate Bill 328. And as was eloquently put, the bill requires the governor to propose money for the budget. And we know that time is tough, but our most vulnerable are in our nursing homes. I can't tell you that. We saw it during the pandemic, and people are continuing to die in nursing homes. So we need an adequate workforce. We need an adequate workforce that can go to work on time, and they can spend time with these individuals who are vulnerable, who have multiple needs, who are our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents, and so on. So we respectfully request a favorable report on Senate Bill 328. Thank you, Senator Rosapep.
Okay, we have two people signed up in opposition. Mr. Greenfield. Aaron Greenfield and Dana Kaufman.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Aaron Greenfield here on behalf of Leading Age Maryland, an association comprised of nonprofit providers. We request an unfavorable report on Senate Bill 328. We did meet with the sponsor and and the advocates, and very much appreciate the discussion and are more than willing to continue to have the discussion. But Medicaid providers have experienced chronic underfunding coupled with rising costs, causing them to either operate in the negative or with very small margins. Unlike other businesses, these providers are unable to pass those added costs on to consumers. The bill places an unequitable mandate on only nursing homes. If you read the bill, the 8% is provided for all Medicaid providers. So it benefits all providers, which is a great thing. And I might suggest that I believe this fiscal or the upcoming fiscal year, the governor has a 3% increase. So you're looking at an 8% increase for all providers during those 3 fiscal years. We'll take it, but this only provides a mandate on nursing homes for those 3 years. That 75% pass through is along with the cost report. And the last few years, the mandated rate reimbursement increase has become both the floor and the ceiling. And unfortunately, rates are not based on the cost of providing care, but what is determined allowable in the state budget. By constraining how the rate increases must be spent, Medicaid providers are limited in addressing other cost factors, such as increases in transportation services, food prices, medical equipment, insurance, building revitalization, general maintenance, wage compression on other non-care staff and supervisors.
I will say our members, and I suspect the other associations are in line with this, continually evaluate wages and increase wages and benefits to better support their team members. In fact, many of our members report having increased wages more than 20% over the previous 4 years. However, reimbursement mechanisms must be aligned to ensure providers are able to meet rising costs in other areas of operations. And for those reasons, respectfully.
Thank you.
For the record, my name is Dana Kaufman. I represent Lifespan Network, which is a senior care provider association. Given the time constraints, I'm going to highlight 3 of our main issues with this bill. And I have to say, I never thought I'd have to oppose a bill that gave providers an 8% increase. But because of the fiscal and operational challenges that are present in this bill, we feel that we need to highlight those. So the first issue is affordability, and this is affordability for the providers. So it's important to remember that nursing homes are not just funded through Medicaid. There is a wide assortment of a provider mix, which also includes Medicare, other state and federal programs, and private pay. What occurs with this issue is that your costs will all go up, your expenses go up because of the mandate on the wages, but you're only receiving the reimbursement back on your Medicaid patients. Medicare and the other payers are not giving you additional money. So it creates this inequity because of your payer mix. So either that amount of money has to be supplemented by the nursing homes, or additional monies has to go in by the state to cover it. So that's one issue. The second issue is really about the continuum of care. So if nursing homes have to increase all of their wages, the same workers are present for the whole continuum. Nursing homes, assisted living, home health, medical adult day, it's basically the same workforce. So if the wages are going up in the nursing homes, the others have to also meet that. So there becomes incentive for workers to be going to the highest pay area. And that is going to create pressures very much. The third issue is the sustainability. It is not lost that we have a budget deficit, and we do not want to be in a position where the state cannot continue these budget increases, but we've had to raise wages. So for those operational challenges, we would request an unfavorable and the ability to really take a more comprehensive view of this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you very much. Okay, Senator Carozza. Senate Bill 95.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. For the record, Senator Mary Beth Carozza, proud to represent Maryland's coast, which includes Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset counties.
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of this distinguished Senate Budget and Taxation Committee for hearing Senate Bill 95. Eastern Shore Code Counties Maximum Hotel Rental Tax Rate Alteration. Senate Bill 95 is a local bill that would enable the code counties of the Eastern Shore to set a new hotel rental tax rate of up to maximum 6%. For reference, there are 4 counties on the Eastern Shore, Caroline, Kent, Queen Anne's, and Worcester, that operate under home rule, which empowers county-level government with broad legislative authority and limits the scope of the General Assembly's local legislative powers. One of these limitations is that home rule code counties are protected from local laws enacted by the General Assembly unless the laws apply to all counties in a class, which is why we are here before you today. All 4 of the Eastern Shore Code counties support this legislation. Under current law, the hotel rental tax rate for these counties is capped at 5%. More than 65% of the hotel tax is paid by out-of-state visitors, not Maryland residents, and it is a dedicated source of funding for tourism and tourism-related activities. Ocean City also needs to remain competitive among its peers. Myrtle Beach has a $50 million tourism budget. Virginia Beach has a $30 million tourism budget, and the Outer Banks is $16 million. Ocean City's tourism budget is only at $13 million. On average, each dollar invested in tourism marketing generates $31 in visitor spending. Our shore tourism is an economic driver for the state of Maryland. The hotel rental tax is a dedicated source of funding for tourism and tourism-related activities. And the Eastern Shore Code counties believe making this minimal increase enabling legislation would be mutually beneficial. I truly appreciate your kind attention and consideration of this local bill, and I respectfully ask for a swift and favorable report of SB 95. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Jennings.
Mr. Chair, Senator, if you remember, this bill had some debate on the floor last year. Have you spoken to the senator that opposed it and worked through the issues that he had, the concerns?
Yes, my understanding, all those issues have been worked through.
Have you spoke to him?
Yes.
All right, so you spoke to the senator, and you think we're good then?
That is my understanding.
Okay.
I think I was going to, if we could do the
Yeah.
witnesses
Yeah,
first.
please do.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chairman Gazone, Vice Chair Rosa Pepe, committee members. I am Worcester County Commissioner Joe Matresic, and on behalf of the Worcester County Commissioners, I am seeking your support for Senate Bill 95. The county commissioners have requested this enabling legislation, which would grant the 4 Eastern Shore Code homeroom counties, all of who support this bill, to increase the hotel room tax from 5% to a maximum of 6% now, or with the consent of a unanimous vote by the county commissioners in the future. A 6% room tax rate is much lower than the rates being charged by our out-of-state resorts competing with Maryland to attract tourists. By way of comparison, Wildwood charges 10.5%, Virginia Beach 9%, and Rehoboth Beach, Delaware 11%, our neighbor. The latest numbers show approximately 43.5 million people visited Maryland in 2022, generating $19.4 billion in spending. Almost 8 million of those visitors flocked to Maryland's coast, Worcester County, where they spent their discretionary funds shopping in resort stores, dining in area eateries, and resting their heads in our hotels, motels, and other short-term rentals. If we had the ability to increase the room tax rate by up to 1%, official could use a portion of this funding source to reach beyond its current markets and introduce a whole new demographic to Maryland attractions. A portion as well could be used to cover our rising costs of emergency medical services, roads, and infrastructure to help our visitors and our residents in the county. In closing, I thank you for your time today and ask you to join us in supporting SB 95. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee, thank you for having us here today. My name's Rick Meehan. I'm the mayor of the town of Ocean City, and I want to thank you for allowing us to be here. My colleagues have presented an awful lot of the information I think that's pertinent to why we are here for this bill. This bill would enable Worcester County to raise their hotel tax rate from 5% or some percentage in between up to 6%, but it would require the unanimous consent of the county commissioners. Room tax dollars has been talked about, the amount of room tax dollars that are generated, but they not only are there to grow tourism in Ocean City, but it also allows us to subsidize some of those costs that are related to tourism in our general fund budget. 43% of our general fund budget goes to public safety.
43%. And in 2025, we are going to be hiring an additional 10 police officers alone in 2025 at a cost, all-in cost of about $100,000 per officer. People come to Ocean City because it's safe and it's clean and it's fun and it's exciting. What we need to do with our rooms tax dollars is continue to make sure that it is safe, it is clean, and it is exciting. And that's for everybody that visits Ocean City. As was stated, 65% of our visitors come from outside of Ocean City. Yet we send millions of dollars to both the state and the county each and every year. We know how important it is for Ocean City to remain the vacation destination it is, to be competitive with our competition, with the degree of spending that was referenced by the county commissioner. And we're here today to respectfully request that you give a favorable recommendation to Senate Bill 95. Thank you.
Good. Good.
I have the honor and privilege of representing the mayor and city council of Ocean City, and I'm just here to assist and answer any questions. But I think the case has been made and said. I think in your package, you have a chart showing the hotel rates in all the jurisdictions. And there are quite a number of them that are well above what's being requested by this legislation. And so we're well below some other Western Shore counties, which I'm not questioning their need to have their tax rates.
Hi, I'm Paul Ellington. I'm here on behalf of Worcester County. In the interest of your time, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
I was trying to do that with Bruce. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm gonna ask Nina, Dan, and Shayna to come up here with me today. Yeah, I don't know what the councilwoman's testimony might be and how it might reflect testimony. Hopefully she don't go off script. I didn't have anything in writing on the formal request ahead of time. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of Budget and Tax, Senator Antonio Hayes for the record. I'm bringing to you Senate Bill 138. Senate Bill 138 would grant the mayor and city council of Baltimore City the authority to set a special property tax rate for properties that lie vacant and abandoned. Senate Bill 138 ensures efficient use of scarce resources while increasing municipal revenue. This bill has been introduced several times in the House by my colleague, by our colleague, Delegate Boyce, and is really important piece of legislation. As we know, in the city, we have endured years of neglected properties. The city and all efforts in trying to address these abandoned and most of the time uninhabitable properties experience many barriers. And in recent years, there's been several pieces of legislation to address this issue, whether it be the interim process and others sponsored by our own Sarah McCray. But we see the need, especially through the Department of Finance, to bring more tools to bear in addressing this issue that has affected our city. As of February 15, 2022, there are 13,744 vacant privately owned properties. And as of December 2023, more than 20,000 vacant lots and tens of thousands more homes that are affected because they're next to vacant and abandoned properties. Properties that are privately owned must go through due process before the city can act to demolish these properties or make plans to take ownership and bring them back into productive use. Senate Bill 138 will speed this process for landlord reformation while allowing government to do more with less increased revenue. You have my written testimony, members of the committee. On the panel today, I have several members with me, including
Representative Demolis from the mayor's office to further explain why this authority to be granted by our mayor and city council is such an important tool to address the vacant housing crisis that we experience in Baltimore City. I urge a favorable report for Senate Bill 138. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dan Ellis.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. I'm Dan Ellis. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Neighborhood Housing Services of Baltimore. So one of the issues that we have in Baltimore City that plagues our city is property speculation on vacant properties. The issues with vacant properties have been well documented in many places, but they're often owned by people who come in from out of town who don't take ownership. They're simply waiting for someone to come along to buy the property. And these properties have a huge blighting effect on the city in many ways. A report that was released last year by Johns Hopkins University found that there was $100 million of direct cost to the city for the vacant properties. And there was an additional $100 million of indirect cost through lost revenue for the decrease in value of the properties surrounding the vacant properties. This cost averaged over the 13,700 properties that are vacant represents over $14,000 per property, per vacant property of lost revenue or direct cost to the city annually. This represents a huge cost to the city on an aggregate basis. Conversely, the assessment on vacant properties is often very low because they're not desirable properties, resulting in tax bills that are well below $1,000 in most cases. And so as a result, there's a huge disparity between the cost to the city and the amount that's being collected. While it is not realistic to expect the vacant properties to fully cover the cost, this bill, which allows incremental increases to the tax base, would reduce or disincentivize speculation while at the same time recovering more of the direct cost that is being billed to these properties and subsidized by the remaining taxpayers of Baltimore City. We appreciate your support and your favorable report on Senate Bill 138. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Shana Roth-Gormley. I'm an attorney at Community Law Center. We're a legal services provider for neighborhoods and nonprofits statewide in Maryland. And one of the most significant issues that our clients in Baltimore City come to us with is vacant properties. Dealing with these properties that are damaging neighboring structures, neighboring homes, harming the communities, and then on a larger citywide basis, eroding the tax base in Baltimore, costing the city in terms of its services. So we work with those nonprofits and neighborhoods to try to address the vacants in their communities. And we support Senate Bill 138 as another tool to address vacant properties in Baltimore. This bill is really about giving the city the ability to say, you know, we need to create an incentive for these properties to be dealt with, for owners to take some action to clean them up, or if they've been abandoned, another tool in the toolkit along with the in-rem foreclosure that was mentioned to return them to productive use. So thank you very much for your time, and we urge a favorable report.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Rosa Pepe, members of the committee. My name is Nina Themlis. I serve as the Director of Government Relations for Mayor Scott, and I'm here to testify in support of SB 138 on behalf of the Baltimore City Administration. This bill is one of Mayor Scott's top legislative priorities for this session, given its ability to complement the administration's comprehensive vacant reduction strategy. Under the current system, the mayor and city council do not have the necessary authority to set special property tax rates for certain classes and subclasses of real property, which limits our ability to respond to the changing needs of residents. By passing this legislation and granting the mayor and city council the authority to set those special rates, the city will be able to support the growth and the development of its communities, as well as provide additional tools toward furthering Mayor Scott's comprehensive vision to address vacant properties at scale. Over the last 3 years, the administration has reduced the total number of vacant properties by 14%, or over 3,000 properties. Yet as of this morning, there are still 13,612 vacant properties in Baltimore City, in addition to about 20,000 vacant lots. The city of Baltimore directly owns fewer than 1,000 of these improved vacant lots or properties, and 46% of all of the remaining vacant properties are owned by individuals who do not live in the city. This bill provides another tool in the toolbox of, as others have said, for continuing to ensure that vacant properties are being converted into productive spaces for existing and future residents of the city. This tool, alongside the in-rem expansion bill passed last year by the General Assembly, will provide the city greater ability to convert these vacant properties into productive use. And for those reasons, the city administration requests a favorable report on SB 138.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Odette Ramos. I represent the 14th District in the Baltimore City Council, here representing the City Council today in full support of this bill and urging your support as well. As others have said, this is another tool for us to make sure that we are addressing vacant and abandoned properties. This morning, I visited the site where 3 firefighters died in a vacant property. So in addition to all of the issues that we've been facing across the city relative to vacant property, today is the anniversary of their deaths. And we want to make sure that that does not happen again and that it doesn't happen to anybody. And so we urge your support of this as well. I just want to again say that as the liens would be increased because of this additional tax, the city does have the ability, thanks to all of you and thanks to Senator McCray, for the in-rem foreclosure where we can foreclose on those properties because the liens are higher than the value of the property, and we're about to expand that as well. So these are comprehensive tools that we need to address this issue, and we could really, really use your help. So thank you so much for your time, and look forward to working with you all on this. Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you for the bill. We see problems like this in Baltimore County. And we see homes are not just vacant, but are trashed. And there's a lot of out-of-state owners. And the problem has been just trying to get in contact with those out-of-state owners to be responsible. And it's a hard fight. Somebody in New York or Boston, wherever, in California, that own property in our area, but won't maintain it properly. Can you just maybe explain how you can, enforce or try, because you're trying to do that, to make sure that there is responsible actors do the responsible thing and take care of that.
No, thank you so much, Senator Sailing. We look forward to your support on this bill. Baltimore City Department of Housing Community Development has a pretty robust code enforcement division, including the legal division, that often have some of the same challenges that you experience in Baltimore County and finding out who are the owners of these properties. And oftentimes the same profile in which you described that exists in Baltimore County exists in Baltimore City, where a lot of times these are out-of-state investors with no real motive to immediately bring these buildings up to code. Most of these properties in the bill, we specifically identify those properties that are vacant and oftentimes inhabitable. So they're in such disrepair, it's not suitable for a human being to be living in. But the agency has done an extraordinary job with all of the resources that it has to go after these individuals. But as Dan described earlier, a lot of times they are treated in the same manner or taxed at the same rate in which all other properties are. And so this gives us another tool in our tool belt to make sure that we're pursuing these. And the judiciary has been very cooperative in doing so, whether it be the in-rem process which is still fairly new, but they have been very cooperative in making sure that we hold people accountable who are not being responsible citizens in our community.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Other questions? I have 1 or 2 questions. I get the concept. I'm for the concept. I'm actually really enthusiastic about the concept. I'm trying to understand the economics exactly. So would the legislation allow the city to set whatever rate it wants? Or how would you figure out what the rate would be?
I'm gonna defer to Nina, who represents Baltimore City government. But similar to other pieces of legislation, the city, given its governing structure, relies on the legislature in order to authorize.
I know.
And so at that point, there will be public hearings that are well informed by city residents and others as to what that rate would be. But it simply takes the the extra bureaucratic hurdle of coming to the legislature and having this ability to do so. But I'll let Nina talk a little bit more about the
Thank you.
specifics as to how they'll go about doing that.
Yeah, so the language as is written in the bill would allow the mayor and city council, so it would be through ordinance by the city council to set a separate rate for vacant abandoned properties. It does not set a limit for what that would be. But what we would be looking to do is in coordination with the DHCD and the Department of Finance, perform an analysis of what a reasonable rate would be to have that introduced via ordinance to the city council and have a series of public meetings to discuss whether that rate is the appropriate rate to set for those properties.
Okay, I get it. So it would be totally flexible up to the mayor and council. Okay.
Correct.
So give me an example of a property. I'm sure the councilwoman or others know specific properties they could give me examples of. But I'm not looking to name names, but give me an example of a property that probably is paying how much now and how much would you want them to be paying to have the right incentive effects?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, if you don't mind. Or Senator, if you have an example,
Yeah, I thought this was my hearing.
go ahead.
Really quick.
He has to, so it's okay.
So on the West North Avenue Development Authority, West North Avenue corridor, we have 60% vacancies, right? Some of those houses and the profile of those houses, some might not have a back wall, right? Some of those might not have, floors in between them. So there's a lot of situations whereas the profiles of these houses are in really, really serious disrepair.
I believe you. I visited the area. I know exactly what you mean.
Got you. And so I'm sorry, Mr. Vice Chair, I was
is-
distracted a minute. Were you looking for an address?
No, I'm not looking for an address. I'm just looking for an amount. If you take one of those properties,
Got you.
about how much are they paying in property tax now?
Oh, and
Is it
property tax.
$2 or $20 or $200 or $2,000?
Right. I'm gonna defer to Dan real quick.
So typically we find on vacant properties that they're typically paying $500 to $1,000, sometimes even less on the property taxes annually.
Okay.
And so with an amount, because it's set at the same rate as a homeowner, but if it's assessed at $25,000, $30,000, that's obviously a pretty low rate when you calculate it. So $500 to $1,000 is not atypical for what it pays.
That was the first part of my question. That perfect answer. Second part of my question is for anybody, is to have the incentive effects you want to get people to actually redevelop these. You got to get it from 1,000 to 2,000 or 1,000 to 10,000 or what? As you've thought about this, what are you thinking about?
One of the examples that was provided in my testimony, Mr. Vice Chair, was in Washington, DC, which, is our immediate neighbor as well as yours. In Washington, DC, the special tax rate of 5% for vacant and 10% for blighted properties helped to reduce this same issue in the Washington, DC area. I don't think the detail of what it will actually be is completely ironed out. Obviously, it will have to go through the legislative process at the local level and have input from a vast array of stakeholders, including property owners as as various city agencies, with the feedback and input from, the local government as well. And so I think that is to be determined at some point, and we want to be able to give the local jurisdiction the ability to figure that out in their deliberation.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense. One last question. We had a bill earlier this week dealing with abandoned gas stations. I think focused on the city of Baltimore. Are you all familiar with that legislation? It was Senator Brooks' legislation.
I think I heard about it. That was focused on Baltimore County. Oftentimes, the two counties are confused because
No. The city. There was a council member who testified for it. There was a city council member, I believe, who testified for it.
Man, I don't know.
Well, we don't.
But Senator Brooks who was the sponsor of the bill, represents.
He represents the county.
Correct.
Where I'm going with this, would this apply to abandoned gas stations as well as to abandoned houses and other kinds of abandoned property?
Yeah. So, and I think the councilwoman want to opine upon this, but currently this bill does not distinguish between residential or commercial.
That's my question.
And Dan just alluded me to, so Ryan Dorsey, one of our council people, actually testified on that bill. Typically, when it comes to legislation at this level, we rely on the administration input. I don't think the administration opined on it. That's why I was a little bit
Yeah, no, I
confused.
understand. I was just trying to relate them.
Yeah, but I think our colleague Senator Brooks introduced that because of problems that they were experiencing in Baltimore County. But I think the councilwoman had some additional information that she wanted to opine.
Sure. Thank you, Senator. On that point, yes, so this would apply for both commercial and residential. They all have the same criteria for what means a vacant and abandoned property. And I do have an example in my district. I have many vacant properties in my district, but one of them is a corner store. And the guy's only paying $100 for taxes, and he's just sitting on it.
Fine.
So what we're trying to do is get that up
Yep.
so that either we can take it through the in rem process and foreclose on it, or it's an incentive to say, hey, wait a second, it's going to actually cost me less to actually do something with it.
Yep. No, it makes perfect sense.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Any other questions, members of the committee? I'm sorry? Oh, we went virtual. I'm sorry. Please,
Yes.
can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Please, yeah, go ahead. Proceed.
Hi, good afternoon, members of the Maryland State Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak in support of Senate Bill 138. My name is Isaac Leal. I'm a resident of the 40th District here in Baltimore City. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to Senator Hayes for his effort in getting this bill and assembling everyone. His leadership is a testament to the commitment to the betterment of our communities. Baltimore stands at a pivotal junction where the decisions we make today will shape the fabric of our community for many generations. SB 138 is a crucial step in the right direction for Baltimore, and its implications extend far beyond the immediate fiscal adjustments. It's about building a Baltimore that we can all be proud of, a Baltimore that thrives on the well-established and democratic principles of equity, responsibility, and community engagement. The issues of vacant and abandoned properties, often concentrated in our most vulnerable and impoverished neighborhoods, are more than mere eyesores. They are symptomatic of deeper societal neglect. We have more than 13,000 vacants in Baltimore City, has been noted, and while that number has reduced over time, it is still far too many. They become havens for crime, safety hazards, and erode the sense of community, disproportionately impacting low-income Black Baltimoreans and Baltimoreans of color in particular. By allowing these properties to remain vacant, we tacitly endorse a status quo that undermines the health and safety of our poorest and least resourced communities and individuals. Our hardest hit neighborhoods are often majority Black neighborhoods in West Baltimore, in District 40, Senator Hayes' district and my district, neighborhoods like Carrollton Ridge, Sandtown Winchester, and Penrose Fayette Street Outreach. Furthermore, the revenue generated from this special tax rate presents a unique opportunity for Baltimore. Although I have no affiliation with the Maryland Institute for Progressive Policy, a vacancy tax leveraged at 10 times the level of property tax could generate up to $100 million a year in revenue. Although hopefully with vacants being converted or sold, this number would be expected to decrease over time. The additional income can be reinvested in our community. I hope the committee provides a favorable report and works to make it Baltimore's time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Going once, going twice? I think that concludes the hearing. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Okay, Senator Washington. Bring up your panel if you have one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to bring up my panel, Shamoya Gardner, Ellie Mitchell, and Carlos Orbi. Is he here? This panel is perfect. I come to you today to speak on behalf of community schools. For the record, Senator Alonzo Washington here to speak on SB 161, community schools. I'm really proud of this piece of legislation for multiple reasons, but I'll list about three of them. One, there's no fiscal note to this bill. Two, everyone that's testifying on this bill is in support of this bill, or want a minor edit or amendment, which I agree to. And also, this is a Black Caucus priority. Just to let you know what this bill does, actually, it's about the community schools that are here in the state of Maryland. We have over 400 community schools thanks to the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. I was proud to be a member of the Kerwin Commission and proud to
sponsor the legislation that was passed a few years ago and now it is being implemented. However, after a few years of its implementation, we do see some cracks that we believe we need to fix. And I believe that the community schools model that was created under the Blueprint for Maryland's Future is the backbone, honestly, of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. And I believe if we don't get community schools right, the Kerwin Commission, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future will have failed. Under this bill, it will restore key definitions and elements to community schools by ensuring that we have national best practices. That was not in the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. It will emphasize the inclusion of families and community partners in community schools leadership teams. It requires MSD to consult with local community school implementers and stakeholders to create and implement a common needs assessment tool. It requires plans to be submitted for coordinating concentration of poverty grants funds for all school districts. And also it will allow for flexibility among LEAs of up to 10% of concentration of poverty grants. Again, this bill is a really good bill because we cannot leave any of our students behind. We got to shore up what we currently have in these community schools. It's extremely important that when in the Kerwin Commission, we always talked about accountability and implementation. This bill will allow for that accountability in implementation to ensure that it's being implemented with fidelity. Our students deserve it, our parents deserve it, and our students, families, and teachers deserve it. And so with that, I ask for a favorable report on this bill, and I'm allow my panelists here to talk about what community schools are, why they're important to our school districts, why we need to continue to invest in them, and why we need to just get this right. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Ellie Mitchell. I am the director of the Maryland Out of School Time Network, and we also serve as the backbone for the Maryland Coalition for Community Schools. And I want to thank our sponsor, Senator Washington, for this bill. It is really actually simple and straightforward, a bill to improve the community school provisions of the blueprint. Community schools have been established in the research base as having a major impact on many aspects of student outcomes, not just academic, but also the social emotional well-being. But in order for that impact to occur, we have to follow the research-based best practices, as were mentioned. So these additional robust definitions, the flexibility for the LEAs with some guardrails, and then the common needs assessment, which is actually really critical for us to be able to roll up apples to apples, some of the data that's coming out of community schools to be able to respond at the state and local levels to the themes of the school needs. So this bill is doing all of that. We have heard from the LEAs, they have some concerns about some of the accountability and assessment language. We believe MSDE and the LEA should be collaborators in the implementation of community schools, and we're willing to work with the sponsor and the committee chairs to find language that it works for everybody around those spaces. So we urge a favorable report for Senate Bill 161.
Good afternoon, members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. I'm Shamoya Gardiner, Executive Director of Strong Schools Maryland, here in strong support of Senate Bill 161. Senator Washington already took my highlighting note. It is possibly the easiest bill you will have to contend with this year, given the $0 fiscal note. We care about this issue for a variety of reasons. Strong Schools Maryland, as well as Ellie and myself as individuals, were involved prior to the passage of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future in the passage of Senate Bill 661, which we intended at the time to codify those national best practices in community schools implementation. Ultimately, some language was left out. We are hoping you all will consent to adding this language in. But the reason why we continue to care about this issue is because of what we've seen across our school communities across the state over the last several years. We have had and continue to have conversations with community school coordinators who are in schools where they're not necessarily speaking the same language as a majority of the families of the students that they serve, or find themselves limited in their capacity to build off of the very creative and innovative implementation plans they wanted to bring to fruition because of prohibitive things like local board policies or a general lack of understanding about what community schools have the potential to be. And so what we wanted to do, and the promise that we made to the folks in the Strong Schools Maryland network, who are many of our public school system employees, is that we are going to advocate for you and to make sure that we got it right in terms of state level language so that they can have all they need to get it right on the ground. Finally, I want to highlight for you all what's at stake. It's no secret that people are coming and sniffing around the resources that exist strictly for the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. We know it is very easy to pull resources away from children because they are the most underrepresented groups in our society. They do not often have advocates who exist just to advocate for their needs. And so if we allow for language to continue, we're going to see more questions as to the effectiveness of the blueprint. We have quite a bit of support on this bill, and we sincerely urge the committee to issue a favorable report.
I love the sponsor. I love community schools. I love the solution, but I'm not clear on the problem. So could you elucidate a little bit more what's going wrong?
Yes, so there's a couple of issues at a variety of levels. On the funding portion that's most relevant to you all, we expand the eligibility for school systems who can flexibly use some of the concentration of poverty grants, because even though our larger school systems with 40 or more qualifying schools have that flexibility, there are systems like Kent County, 5 schools that are never going to reach that threshold and still need to be able to coordinate things like the distribution of services, the development of community school coordinators, and frankly have a clear line of communication that puts them on par with other school systems developing the strategy, and the State Department of Education, as their Office of Community Schools continues to do great work.
You're saying in some of the smaller counties, they don't have schools that meet the concentration of poverty threshold, and therefore they don't have access to community school money?
They do have access to community school money, and many of them do have community schools. The school system itself, so those funds go to the individual school level, and that means that within a school system that might have multiple qualifying schools, there's no incentive and there's also no institutional structure to coordinate between those schools and ensure that resources are being used effectively, best practices
So I'm not saying this is a criticism, I'm just trying to follow money here, but basically you're saying that provision would take money out of the school into central administration.
And so, yes, this is also very consistent with what we've seen in the blueprint. We approved 50% of concentration of poverty grants to be available to our school systems with 40 or more qualifying schools to coordinate those services. And so what we're talking about here is 10% of services, because what we're seeing on the ground without this coordination is folks just kind of attempting to do community schools in whatever way they think that is. That's not sustainable. That's not going to produce the results we want to see. And that will threaten future funding for blueprint programs like the community school strategy if we don't get it
When
right.
you're saying people, I mean, isn't that people in the schools?
Can
Isn't that the
I,
point of community
could I
schools?
give you an example? Until recently, Baltimore County had like 38, not quite 40 community schools. And they were getting more money in their concentration of poverty grant dollars than they were getting Title I money.
Right.
And they had 0 personnel at the administrative level that could be dedicated to that work because it's not allowed in the
Because it's supposed to go to the school.
because it's supposed to go to the school. And frankly, I would say 50% is too much. For the districts that have 40%, 40 or more schools, but 10% does seem like a reasonable flexibility allowance for the districts that have fewer than
Okay, so
40.
that's one problem.
Yeah.
Is that the major problem you're trying to fix?
That's just one of them. The other is the actual definition of community schools itself and who sits on school leadership teams and who should be open and allowed and engaged in the community
Who's
school.
being kept out now?
Many times families and outside community partners.
And educators and students.
Well, who's in?
That's a great question.
No, serious question.
It depends on the community school, again, due to the lack of a consistent, coherent statewide definition of the strategy.
Who makes the decision at the school level, the school system level, as to who's in the group now?
Principals, community school coordinators, and then it can absolutely vary from there.
Are those the two big things?
Those are the two biggest things. I think the common needs assessment would be the third biggest thing. Right now, there's some guidance and templates around the needs assessments, but because they are all different, we can't roll them up. And so it needs to be done in consultation with the locals so that there is some wide agreement about what should be in a needs assessment. And frankly, there is some agreement, but those needs assessments that the schools do every other year need to be common across the state. So we have some real data.
Senator?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not going to be like the last senator and say this is my public hearing.
It is your public hearing.
But I'm sharing it with these advocates that need a voice, and I wanted them to make sure that they had an opportunity to answer those questions directly to you. But what I've seen directly is in Spring Hill Lake, where a school that you and I know very well, it's about 90% poverty level.
Yeah.
It's high percentages of English as first language speakers that are there. The community schools coordinator that's there does not interact on a consistent basis with the community in developing that plan, that action plan, that community schools plan. And as a senator that represents that district, as a resource, I'm not reached out to that. That's my feeder school, Spring Hill Lake is. And so, and they have not reached out to the municipality in that school too. And so what we don't see is that what we wanted in the Blueprint for Maryland's Future is this done with fidelity. And because this language was removed when we first initially introduced the bill, this language was in there, and then the language got removed out of it.
Got it.
And so we want this back in there so that every school is treated uniformly and not different. And there's that we remove the inequities that happen from a Spring Hill Lake Elementary School to a school in Laurel.
Gotcha. That's really helpful. It's putting community back in community schools.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Exactly. Thank you. Good tagline.
Okay, Senator Helman?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for this bill. I think it's really interesting, and also the expansion of what community school dollars can be used for, like the transportation money. I want to just use this opportunity. I have a bill on community schools too, and I would love to have you guys look at it, and we should talk and figure out whether I think there are synergies here. We do have a fiscal note. This committee will hear about it next week, but I think it's really interesting what you're. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions for this panel? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do have 4 people who are signed up as favorable with amendment. Come on up, all of you here.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Guzzoni, Vice Chair Rosenpep, and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Dr. Shannon Pugh, and I serve as the Anne Arundel County Blueprint Implementation Coordinator, and I oversee the community school strategy in AACPS. I'd like to say that Dr. Mark Bedell, our superintendent, was here hoping to share some words. However, he had some 5th graders he had to get to by 3. So in AACPS, we are especially proud of our Blueprint community schools. Research is clear that when families and students have access to crucial wraparound services, students excel socially, emotionally, and academically. In fact, this year, we had 12 AACPS schools that improved by at least 1 star on the Maryland report card. And of these 12, 9 are AACPS Blueprint community schools. In fact, Annapolis Elementary School is the only school in the state that went from 2 stars to 4 stars on the state accountability system. And we do not believe this is a coincidence. The AACPS community school strategy is working. We enthusiastically support the proposed amendment that would allow districts with less than 40 schools to utilize up to 10% of the per pupil grant to provide district-wide supports to our community schools. Our schools are led by amazing principals and community school coordinators, but the reality is that putting the grant management duties on the community school coordinators has been an unrealistic expectation. Coordinators are spending more time working on budgets, payroll, contracts, and grant documentation than they are working with families. In addition, we request that the bill be amended to remove the language that would give MSDE the ability to change school-level needs assessments and implementation plans. Our schools are spending 2 years working with families, partners, community members, and district offices to write and create their needs assessments and implementation plans. MSDE is not part of this process and should not have the
the authority to dictate to individual schools how to best service our families and students. Accordingly, I respectfully request a favorable with amendments report on Senate Bill 161. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Gazone, Vice Chair Rosa Pep, and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Samantha Saunders, and I'm a first-year community school coordinator at Glen Burnie Park Elementary School in Anne Arundel County. I came to the community school coordinator position from a Title I teacher role. I wanted to speak about the different levels of support I received in each role and implore you to support this bill with amendments, which would allow districts to utilize up to 10% of grant funding at the central office level to support those of us in schools. In my role as a Title I math teacher in a school, I did have a small budget to manage, but outside of ensuring that my Title I plan was affordable, my direct role in grant management was minimal. The district Title I office used grant funds to build district-wide grant management support so that someone with financial expertise was effectively managing the day-to-day budgetary tasks, such as payroll, ordering from master agreements, and negotiating and paying for contracted services. Currently under Blueprint, districts cannot use grant funds for district-wide support to community schools until the district reaches the arbitrary number of 40 schools. So right now, what was done at the central office level to support the Title I program is not replicated for the community school program. As a community school coordinator, I spend up to half of my time each week working on the budgetary and financial minutia that could easily be done by someone at the district level who could do it more efficiently and effectively, leaving me to the work with my families, staff, and the community to build that strong community school program that will directly impact student success. Please allow this support so that I can focus on the people work rather than the paperwork. As you heard from Dr. Pugh, we request the bill be amended to remove proposed language that would give MSDE the ability to change school level needs assessment and implementation plans. As such, I request favorable with amendment on on Senate Bill 161. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Guzoni, Vice Chair Rosapep, and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Saily Bocanegra, and I am the Community School Coordinator at North Glen Elementary School. We are in our second year of being a community school. Last year, we spent the whole year working with families, community partners, staff, and district offices to identify the unique needs of the students and families at North Glen Elementary. This year, we have spent the past 5 months continuing this work as we draft our 3-year community school implementation plan. We brought in a diverse group of school and community stakeholders to identify the needs and assets in our community and to help draft our plan on how we are going to work to remove out-of-school barriers to student success. With this in mind, I was shocked to read the proposed amendments to Blueprint that would give MSDE the authority to require schools to change their needs assessment and implementation plans. To allow MSDE to do so would undermine the work that we have done with the community members and our families and staff for the past 1.5 years. Community schools are designed to meet the unique needs of each school community. This work needs to remain with schools, communities, and districts so that the implementation plan that our community builds truly reflects our work. I can't imagine spending 2 years working on these comprehensive plans that reflect the community's voice, only to have them modified by someone at MSDE who has never been to my school, met my community, or analyzed our needs and assets at such a granular level. Thank you for your support of the community school strategy. I do believe the strategy has the potential to have a big impact on students, families, and communities. I'd request a favorable with amendments report on Senate Bill 161. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, since Dr. Bedell is unavailable to testify, would it be possible for me to testify in his place? Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Gazone, Vice Chair Rosa Pep, and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. I'm Grace Wilson. I'm the Legislative and Policy Specialist for Anne Arundel County Public Schools. You've heard about our support for the use of of up to 10% of the per pupil allocation grant funds for districts to support schools in areas such as grant management. But I want to also share concerns that our community partners have. Partners such as the Boys and Girls Club, Anne Arundel County Community College, our health department, Maryland and Anne Arundel County food banks, and local hospitals and dental clinics, and various other agencies and nonprofits are begging us to streamline the approach to partnering with community schools so that 23, soon to be 36 community schools in Anne Arundel County are not individually reaching out and trying to create agreements with these partners. This is too much for our partners to navigate, and ultimately this impacts the work of our schools. Allowing the use of funds for district support benefits our schools as well as our various community partners. In addition, we are proposed amendments to allow MSDE the ability to approve and require schools to change their needs assessments and implementation plans. Empowering local school communities to develop school plans that strengthen community assets and seek out authentic programming and partnership is at the heart of the community school strategy. MSDE simply does not know enough about any of our school communities to make meaningful decisions about what an individual school needs or must include in their plans. We support the guidance and partnership, but the final authority for the format and final content of the needs assessments and plans needs to remain with the schools, communities, and the district. As such, I respectfully request a favorable with amendments report on Senate Bill 161. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for this panel? Thank you all very much for being here. Senator Washington. 191.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Senator Alonzo Washington here to testify in support of a local Prince George's County delegation bill. This bill is a bill that would only authorize the Prince George's County government to allow for a property tax credit for public school employees. I created this piece of legislation out of the point that we've done this before. We've authorized the county to pass legislation for property tax incentives for our police officers and also for our sheriffs within our county. Not only did we authorize it, but the county moved forward with also enabling it at the county level. As you know, we have a teacher shortage here in the state of Maryland, but we all have a teacher shortage in Prince George's County. And so I propose this bill to help with that teacher shortage. Right now, the starting salary in Prince George's County for a teacher is $55,000 a year. To own a house in Prince George's County is about $450,000 a year. It's difficult for our families and for our teachers to buy a home that work for our school system in order to live in our county. I'm urging a favorable report because I want to attract teachers. I want to attract students and our teachers back into the school system. I want to retain our teachers. I want to attract new teachers. And for that, I urge a favorable report for this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Got a letter from the delegation. And we'll
Coming soon, Mr. Chairman,
pass it
right?
Right out. All right.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Senator Reedy. 363. Okay. What's that?
I could bring up Anna with me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I believe I have Karen Barber with me. Yes, thank you. Sit there outside. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. I know it's been a lot of bills for you today. Senate Bill 363 is an important change, would be an important change to our procurement contracting law. Senate, it was brought to me by a constituent and friend who's here with me today, and it would alter the definition of beneficial ownership under the state procurement law. It would alter the types of individuals who must disclose ownership stakes in businesses that have contracts with the state. Currently, if a business has a contract with the state of Maryland, anyone who owns more than that is more than $200,000. So if they're doing business with the state for $200,000 or more, anyone owning more than 5% of that business must report their ownership to the Secretary of State. This bill seeks to change the amount of ownership that would make that requirement to 25% of the business, and or if the person is considered a director in the business. This would match the federal government's definition of beneficial ownership for their contracts. Many times in businesses, and I know many of you, of course, are in, or have been involved or have your own business, someone could have up to 5% ownership or even 10% or a percentage like that, and they wouldn't be making any management decisions or legally bind the company in any way. What Senate Bill 363 would seek to do is just protect employees that are fortunate to gain some of these minority ownership stakes. If we pass this bill, owners who own less than 25% of the company and have no contractual legal authority, we would be giving them, they would not be forced to do this sort of disclosure. Oftentimes this can catch people because they didn't realize that was the law. Perhaps it's a company that does a lot of federal contracting work, but only a little bit of state work. There's a lot of examples. So it's conceivable that somebody with 5% of ownership would not really be privy to all the agreements their business may even have with the state. The federal government changed this in 2016, and so to this 25% standard. So that's what we are seeking to do. And I wanted to introduce my next witness. I'm of course happy to take any questions, but Karen Barber is with me representing the AHCC, which is the Alliance for Hispanic Commercial Contractors. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I'd like to turn it over to her because she really is very involved in this area, and look forward to, we would greatly appreciate your support for this common sense change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members of the committee, Chair. Thank you, Vice Chair. Appreciate it, the time here. So I have, besides the Alliance for Hispanic Commercial Contractors, which is a training organization, and we've seen this situation come up. We advise contractors in the Hispanic community of this law. We don't want them to get in trouble because for token ownership, they are being exposed to a lot of risk. If they fail to comply, they could be sanctioned $10,000 and be held for criminal offenses. And that's kind of scary for the Hispanic community. It's scary for any small business, actually. But I also have the Barber Group, and I'm a surety bond broker, and we do a lot of bonded work with the state through our clients and, with federal government too. So Senator's right. I mean, if you have a contractor that primarily does a lot of private or federal work, and then they happen to get a $200,000 cleaning contract with the Maryland Stadium Authority, for example, over a 5-year period, they're not going to be privy to the law. So we just don't want to get people in trouble. And this is token ownership. And also, it's not just protects the employees who are giving ownership because of their exemplary work ethic. But it also is if I'm the Barber Group, for example, and I want to have 5% ownership in another company, and that owner goes away on vacation and says, hey, can you sign this contract for me? I'm not here. You have signing authority. I don't want to be in that position. I'm a limited partner at that point. I don't want to be exposed to that. So really, the federal law saw that. They understood the consequences, and they increased it to 25%. And this is what the banks follow. So, it's only fair to say that the banks are already using this in Maryland. So why not just bring the law back up to where it needs to be for current standards? Thank you very much.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Alfred. Nancy.
Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Yes, that's more like it, isn't it? Let me just move around here a little bit. Members of the Budget and Taxation Committee, thank you so much for hearing Senate Bill 346. Senator Sarah Alford representing District 30. Here with a bill that we've heard a couple of times, a couple of years in a row, made some progress on this last year. Our Keep Our Heroes Home Act, as you recall, Governor Moore championed this issue to expand tax relief for military pensions. The progress last year was wonderful. We amended it back, so not the progress that was introduced. Today, I wanted to restart that conversation and also focus a little more, not just on the overall benefit, but on the age limitation of current law. So it only benefits retired veterans over 55. My point here is that most veterans retire around age 40 is the average age of folks retiring from the military after nearly 2 decades of service. Representing the Naval Academy, I have a lot of veterans who exit service and want to come back to Maryland, but aren't going to be the 55 years of age that the current tax benefit would be helpful to. Yet these are highly skilled veterans who should be able to make a significant income by availing themselves of our infrastructure here in Maryland, yet are feeling the pull towards other states, whether to move to other states or frankly live here, but because they own homes in other states that don't tax their pension, pay their income taxes in other states. So we're losing that tax revenue, and we could be losing that skilled workforce by not addressing this age issue. So I will be very brief, committee. You are familiar with this issue. I think when we talk about how to be competitive with other states, we shouldn't be losing some of our best and most talented and skilled workforce to those other states who will be having second careers, and we want them to stay here in Maryland. Thank you.
Chair Gazone, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of Senator Alford's bill. I'm Dave Dragic, a retired Army Colonel and Legislative Director of the Maryland Military Coalition, which represents over 150,000 uniformed services connected individuals, including military retirees. There are almost 1,000 fewer military retirees in Maryland since 2020, part of the 36,000 decline in veterans in this state since then. According to the Comptroller's recent economic report, we've had stalled economic growth since 2017. Migration to states like the Carolinas and Florida, a decline in the labor participation rate, and slow employment and wage growth. A ranking from the Tax Foundation of 45th out of 50 states for our individual income tax, basically behind each of the 4 states touching our borders. This data and more is in our written testimony for your review. Now, this bill may appear to be a tax cut for military retirees. However, the fundamental issue for the bill is whether Maryland will begin taking steps to retain the critical human capital, military retirees under the age of 55, or continue letting the valuable resource migrate away. When military retirees and their families leave Maryland, we are deprived of revenue from income taxes, from property taxes, from sales taxes, and other economic benefits that would be received up to 25 years if they stayed. The question we have for this committee, the coalition has for this committee, is whether we want to take a step, small but significant step, towards mitigating these issues and helping to retain the human capital to help improve the state's economy going forward, or continue down the current path. Your call. So the Maryland Military Coalition strongly supports SB 346 and asks for a favorable report from the committee. We'd like to thank Senator Elford for sponsoring this legislation and appreciate her leadership on this issue.
Thank you. We have one virtual witness here. Michael Bowers, are you ready? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm ready, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Mike Bowers, and a Marine and Maryland native. You know, Navy SEAL Chris Chambers was part of SEAL Team 3 and based in California. He was executing an unthinkably dangerous mission off the coast of Somalia when he unselfishly jumped into the sea to save his teammate's life. He died. Over the past week in the news, we've gotten to know Chris, well, and every time they refer to him, he is a Navy SEAL and a Maryland native. Tragic events like this should prompt our elected leaders to stop and reflect. Is Maryland reciprocating that sacrifice of our service members and veterans? I too am a Maryland native. For the past 30 years as an active duty Marine, I've moved 18 times around the world. I've fought in close quarters combat, and I've missed a collective 6+ years of my family's life, time with my family. For all but 3 of those 30 years, I lived outside of Maryland, but I paid taxes here. It was my home of record. Not once during those 27 years of living outside Maryland did I receive any form of tax relief or fee relief from the state of Maryland. But I remained loyal to the state. This past summer, I went through, I had a gut-wrenching decision to make at a juncture when I retired from the military. Do I return to the state that in some ways has left me behind over the years, but I have roots here? Or do I take the advice of many people I've heard over time, which is live in West Virginia, work in Maryland, and retire in Pennsylvania? Well, I remain loyal to the state, and I'm back. I favorably support, this bill. To me, it is a simple one. Invest in us. We invest right back into Maryland. We're a wonderful community, and I appreciate the time and urge your support for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, may I add one point? And I want to thank Mr. Bowers because his is a story I hear so often. When we were researching for this bill, my staff found a startling statistic. Over half of the female veterans in this country are under 45. So this is also an equity issue. As we talk about how do we keep veterans here, we want to talk about keeping our female veterans in Maryland as well, when so many of them are on the younger side. So with that, Madam Chair, I ask for a favorable report.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, Senator Benson, you have 2 bills. Are you ready?
It would be the military pension itself, the retiree pension. Yes. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and esteemed members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. Today, I am here to offer this testimony in vigorous support of Senate Bill 64, an income tax credit for employers providing parental engagement leave. This bill provides a tax credit for employers who provide parental engagement leave to qualified employees during the taxable year by requiring the State Department of Education in consultation with the comptroller to provide a certain certification form which requires qualified employees to obtain, require county board member and school personnel signatures, making the credit refundable depending on the circumstance. This bill is providing a positive incentive, which allows employers to provide parental engagement leave to certain qualified employees during the taxable year, which I have forestated. But I want to just kind of talk with you all just a few moments about my experience as a principal in Prince George's County. Our county, when I was the principal, our county superintendent implemented an 8-week partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, whereby each public school partnered with a county business. Mentors from each business worked with children and teachers and the community alike. And as a result, we were amazed at what happened in our schools. The academic performance and personal excellence just soared. A highly motivated school population and more parental involvement became the order of the day. We were very, very excited and delighted about this. When we talked with the superintendent and analyzed the experiences that we had in our schools, we were just very concerned that there was no way of us expanding that program because we didn't have real incentives to present to not only the employers, but to the people who wanted to remain as volunteers in the various schools. Now, I believe that the passing of this bill and all of the positive outcomes that we have experienced or that we experienced in Prince George's County during the years of 1985 and 1991, I believe that with these positive outcomes and experiences, Senate Bill 64 tax credit for employers against income tax would help in raising the bar for our children. Let us not forget, our children rest in the primary purpose of this legislation. I therefore request a positive response to this very important bill. And as we all know, a positive response necessitates a committee report, that the committee report fervently in favor of the Senate Bill 64. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and members of this committee. Thank you all for you giving this bill a favorable response. Thank you. I have with me this afternoon a member of the Prince George's County Public School Board who is just doing a magnificent job. And as a result, he did talk with me about having this bill presented before you this afternoon, because he has a deep passion for parental involvement. All of us understand the urgency of coming up with ways to involve our parents. We also know that the children are the parents' first teacher. The parents are the children's first teacher. You all know that. And we also know that a rising tide lifts all ships. And that really sums up what this bill is all about. So I would like to ask the school board member, Jackson, to come forth and make his remarks.
Thank you, Senator. Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. I'm Brandon Jackson of Prince George's County School Board, member for District 6. And I'm here to advocate in favor of the income tax credit for employers providing parental engagement leave, SB 064. There are 6 types of parental engagement: communication between parents and teachers, volunteer opportunities, roles in the academic decision-making process, at-home learning and development, community collaboration, and parenting. These functions of engagement are critical for every scholar as they matriculate through academia. Research shows when the community is involved, they have positive impacts on academic achievement. We have safer schools and communities. Students feel emotionally supported. Mitigation of bullying and increase of accountability for students, staff, and administration, just to name a few. Parental engagement is the marquee indicator for success in every school system, and every constituent should be afforded this opportunity to leverage it, regardless of their level of income. Today, as we work to stabilize the economy and to combat inflation, everyday citizens feel the tightening of their purse strings. Parents call me to express their dilemma, to either forego wages or engage in school activities. This bill is a step in the right direction, giving businesses the opportunity to support their parent employees by helping them maintain their wages while volunteering will be a tremendous step in helping stabilize our families. Every child should have the appropriate infrastructure to support their academic future. We make that possible by helping to level the playing field with this piece of legislation. Parental engagement shall always be a question of willingness and never affordability. Thus, I respectfully urge the committee to issue a favorable report for SB 0064. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you very much. Sarah Benson, let's move on to your next bill.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon again, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, and esteemed members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. Senate Bill 198, Income Tax Credit for Parent and Guardian Volunteers in Elementary and Secondary Schools. This bill will allow eligible taxpayers who volunteer in elementary and secondary schools a credit against the state income tax. It also requires the State Department of Education, in consultation with the comptroller, to develop and make available an application and tax credit certificate requiring the issuance of tax credit certificates by either one, a county school board member, or two, a school administrator, making the credit refundable under certain circumstances. Senate Bill 198 incentivizes and rewards volunteers in elementary and secondary schools. Puts comprehensively, the bill specifies that first, eligible taxpayers may receive $20 per certificated volunteer hours. Second, volunteer claimants may not exceed $500 in any given year. This bill rewards those selfless individuals who already willingly donate their precious time to Maryland's formative education institutions and monetarily incentivizes growth in our educational communities as a whole. Here, robust literature supports our legislative goals. At surface, it is plain that increased parental engagement in the educational system serves a direct benefit to our community by promoting positive education and health behaviors for and between adolescents and their parents, and notably increases students' overall academic performance in routine grading and testing, all while reducing truancy. Even more benefit is providing by the findings. Offering more support to the same overall benefit, the American Psychological Association found that students to the same overall benefit, the American Psychological Association found that students who consider their school environment one where support, care, and their parents are present, stand less likely to succumb to the plagues of society that suffocate opportunities from our children. Lives before the educational system has a chance in enshrining it in them. Therefore, in what is testimony in brief, only by necessity, my colleagues and all those who hear me now, I implore upon you the urgent and important need to enact this legislation to the benefit of every community, every school, every child in our beloved state. Where we far too often forget about those who willingly labor away in the name of a more promising tomorrow, let us promise we are too invested in that same tomorrow. Today, the only way to fulfill our obligation to that promise is for this respected committee to issue a report in full throttle support of Senate Bill 198. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee, for your most favorable response.
Good afternoon again, Chairman and Vice Chairman. And members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. I'm Brandon Jackson of Prince George's County School Board Member District 6. And it's fortunate that these bills were back to back, so I don't have to continue to underscore the importance of parental engagement, which I did in our last session. But what I did want to hone in on is how parental engagement is the marquee indicator for success for every school system countrywide. And just to talk about some of the phone calls that I get, the phone calls that I get from our parents, that they have to make a choice between going to work and volunteering at their students, at their child's schools. And I just think that that's a very hard situation to be in. And this dilemma typically comes from the blue collar working families who are employed or underemployed, or time poor, because they have a tremendous amount of hours that they have to work, not just to get ahead, but to maintain their level of poverty. So giving parents the opportunity to supplement foregone wages from volunteering will be a tremendous step in helping stabilize these families. Every child should have the appropriate infrastructure to support their academic dreams. We can make that possible by leveling this playing field with this legislation. Parental engagement should always be a question of willingness and not affordability. I respectfully urge the committee to issue a favorable report for SB 0198. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions from the committee? Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Senator McCray. 342.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to be expedient, I'll make sure that I give quick testimony because I see that there are a number of folks that want to testify on this. For the record, my name is Corey McCray. I'm coming to you in reference to Senate Bill 342. Senate Bill 342 is very simple. It simply aligns renters with what's already given to homeowners. Currently, it would it's excluded the cash value of the retirement accounts from the purpose of just getting the renter's tax credit, Mr. Chair. So basically, those renter income wouldn't be applied to when you're trying to qualify for this set of circumstances. I talked to you about how this is already given to homeowners, but I just wanted to also say that this also adversely impacts folks that may be trying to save for income, but may disincentivize for somebody to have that savings income because they're also adversely impacted. I'll stop doing the talking right there. I know that we have SDAT. I know that we have a number of folks that want to testify, but hopefully you all will give a favorable report for Senate Bill 342, which simply treat renters the same way that we would treat somebody that's a homeowner.
Good afternoon, Chair Gazzoni, Vice Chair Rosapep, and members of the committee. My name is Michael Higgs, and I am the Director of the Maryland Department of Assessments and Taxation. Senate Bill 342 would exclude the value of retirement accounts from the department's definition of assets for the purposes of qualifying for the renter's tax credit. The renter's tax credit provides vital economic assistance for renters living below the federal poverty line to offset the cost of property taxes, which are included in their monthly rent bills. The department currently does not have a consistent definition for how assets are considered for the purposes of the various tax credit programs it provides. Because the renter's tax credit considers the cash value of qualified retirement accounts to be considered assets, renters are then disincentivized from saving for retirement. Further, differing definitions of assets create confusion and have an adverse impact on administrative efficiency. Senate Bill 342 would exclude the cash value of retirement accounts from the department's definition of assets for the renter's tax credit program. The bill would expand the renter's tax credit program to include more residents in need, incentivize retirement saving, and secure financial stability for communities in need of such short and long-term financial assistance. Accordingly, the department respectfully requests favorable report on Senate Bill 342, and we thank Senator McCray for his efforts in this area.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and honorable members of the committee. My name is Jamila Blake, and I'm a SOAR counselor with Economic Action Maryland. SOAR stands for Securing Older Adults with Resources. In my day-to-day work, I coordinate social services for older adults. So I see the direct impact rising rent and property tax rates have on older adults across Maryland. As a SOAR counselor and the daughter of 2 older adults, I support Senate Bill 0342. The majority of my clients have lived and worked in Baltimore City and the surrounding area. Before retiring, they've made significant contributions and sacrifices to the workforce and their families. These retirees have been pillars to their communities. I have heard countless stories of clients not taking vacations or making certain financial sacrifices so they could have a stable retirement. Sadly, many of my clients that have saved for retirement are being told they financially don't meet the eligibility requirements due to their retirement savings accounts. Many have expressed frustration and feel they are being penalized. They feel neglected by the system that encouraged them to save for retirement, but is now excluding them. This is a critical moment to support Senate Bill 0342. By supporting this bill, we are investing in supporting our older adults. We are sending a message to them that we care, but most importantly, that Maryland is truly an age-friendly state. As an older adult advocate, a social worker, and a daughter of aging parents, I encourage you to support Senate Bill 0342. Thank you for your opportunity to speak with you today.
Hello, my name is William Steinwhittle. I'm the supervising attorney for the Foreclosure Legal Assistance Project at the Maryland Legal Aid Bureau. And I want to thank Mr. Senator McCray for inviting us to participate, and thank the chair and vice chair and the committee for listening to our testimony. This credit is very important. It helps a lot of renters. It helps a lot of renters reduce what they have to owe in regards to their taxes. But I wanted to focus on 2 things that I bring specifically to this committee. The first is that that as a tax professional, if they counting a retirement asset as something that you can actually draw upon is kind of counterintuitive, because if you withdraw, and you're under the age of 59 and a half, if you withdraw money, you're going to have to pay a penalty of 10%. So it's not really an asset that you can actively use without penalty for most things. Secondly, if you look at the 11504, which is the Courts and Judicial Proceedings Act, retirement plans, 401ks, 403bs, et cetera, are exempt from collection. So I think this law brings the renter's property tax credit within the general, in concert with the general reflection of how 401k and 403bs are viewed in the Maryland Code. So for those reasons, and also because of the immense help that it'll provide to older Americans, lower income Marylanders, I urge a favorable report on Senate Bill 342.
Good afternoon, members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. My name is Sarah Redinger, and I'm the Vice President of Community Development with Habitat for Humanity Metro Maryland. Habitat Metro Maryland is a nonprofit serving Montgomery and Prince George's counties that builds, sells, and preserves affordable homeownership in partnership with limited income families. We would like to thank Senator McCray for sponsoring this important legislation, and we enthusiastically support Senate Bill 342. I think you've heard plenty of description of what the bill does and all of the wonderful things that it does, so I'll be really brief in my comments. But we really believe that renters should not be penalized for saving for retirement, and that oftentimes, as you just heard, as retirement funds that they cannot access without penalty anyway. And so Habitat really views this bill as an important alignment of both property tax credit programs so that we are treating homeowners and renters equitably. Thank you.
Favor this bill? We have people on virtual.
Hi, good afternoon. Chairman Guzzoni and Vice Chair Rosa Pep and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. I'm Mary Hunter, Director of the Housing Counseling and Services Program at Housing Initiative Partnership. We are a nonprofit housing developer and HUD-approved housing counseling agency serving Prince George's and Montgomery counties. I'm here today in support of SB 342. Since becoming a HUD-approved housing counseling agency 20 years ago, HIP staff has helped close to 50,000 renters and homeowners who are struggling to pay their housing costs. We've seen residents' housing cost burden steadily increase over the years to the point where currently 1/5 of Prince George's and Montgomery County residents pay over half of their income towards housing costs. This renters and homeowners tax credits are both important programs that help these households. Our staff assesses all clients for these credits and have assisted with hundreds of applications. And it has been noted, Senate Bill 342 excludes an applicant's retirement account funds from the $200,000 asset cap that is part of the eligibility requirements for the renter's tax credit. And as has also been noted, I'll just repeat, this is not only brings the renter's tax credit in line with the homeowner's tax credit, but it serves an important policy objective of encouraging both households with children and older adults to make contributions to a retirement account and to preserve those assets to increase their financial security in their retirement years. This credit is crucial, a crucial benefit that helps low-income households remain stably housed in this very expensive rental market. And we urge the committee to recommend approval of SB 342. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Questions? We had two other in-person people. Are they here or do they taking a pass? All good. All right, let's move on to the next bill. Oh, you have another person in the. Okay, somebody else in the. Hello, welcome. I think you're on mute. I think you're still on mute.
There you go. One more time with feeling. Thank you for the opportunity to testify virtually, as difficult as it may appear to me to be. And good afternoon, Chair Guzzone and Vice Chair Rosa Pepe and the rest of the committee. And thank you, Senator McCray, for bringing this bill forward. I'm Cindy DeBala, Tacoma Park City Council member and longtime Tacoma Park resident, speaking on behalf of the city in favor of Senate Bill 342. I'll be brief. We have our small, densely developed city is half homeowners and half renters. Many of those are long-term renters with families and retirement savings. About 13.5% of our city residents are 65 and older, and a significant portion of our residents are low income. So for all of these reasons, with rising property values in our area, it's important to us as a city to support folks to enable them to be able to age in place, renters and homeowners alike. We support this bill because it redefines it levels the playing field between the definitions for homeowners and renters. Others have gone into detail about that, so I won't. And it also advances equity by ensuring more equitable treatment of renters who overall in Tacoma Park and nationwide own homes are less likely to own homes compared to white Americans. So because this bill would assist more of our low-income renters to stay in our community, we support it and we urge a favorable report from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Good job, everyone. Good bill.
Like that head nod, Mr. Chair.
343.
Yes, sir. Colleagues, again, Corey McCray, Senator for the 45th Legislative District, just coming to you today in reference to Senate Bill 343. This stays under the same posture where we're talking about homeowners and renters in reference to the tax credit that's offered. What this would do is actually look at what we looked at 15 years ago, which is the income cap from that standpoint. We think about what inflation has done 15 years ago. We think about what the increased cost of living has done 15 years ago, but we also look at what our current home values have done 15 years ago. This bill alters the definition of gross income, Mr. Chair, to exclude public assistance received in cash grants. This also increases household gross income and limits it to $70,000 to both programs, homeownership and renters. And this also increases the allowable maximum value of dwellings that qualify for programs for the equity in the home, 300,000 to 450. We don't always have that in Baltimore City, but we remember that we're one state, we're one Maryland. So I would hope that we would have a favorable report for Senate Bill 343, and I have this phenomenal panel here to talk and deliberate even more. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee. Again, my name is Sarah Redinger, and I'm with Habitat for Humanity Metro Maryland. And again, we would like to thank Senator McCray for sponsoring this important legislation and enthusiastically support Senate Bill 343. Lack of access to affordable housing is a pervasive issue in Maryland and nationwide. And to solve this crisis, we need to develop new housing and ensure existing homes remain affordable. For the last 14 years, Habitat has worked with hundreds of homeowners on limited incomes to ensure that they could afford health, safety, accessibility, and energy efficiency improvements in their homes. Much of the work that we've done has been in partnership with state agencies. And while these services are a necessary step in ensuring long-term affordability, many homeowners are still at risk of losing their homes due to increasing property taxes. As we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic continues to affect the lives of Marylanders through loss of income, loss of loved ones, inflation, skyrocketing home values, and high interest rates, and in so many other ways. And every day, families across Maryland are making impossible choices between paying for housing, food, transportation, education, and a lot more. Increasing the income limit, excluding public assistance from gross income, and increasing the maximum assessed value are three important steps to ensuring renters and homeowners can afford to stay in their homes. The current income limit of $60,000 has not been raised since 2009. I believe the asset value cap hasn't been raised since 2016, meaning that neither have been raised since the start of the pandemic. For homeowners, the inability to pay property taxes can cause the forced sale of their homes or the loss of their homes through tax sale. This leads to displacement, disruption of stability, and the destruction of wealth. While we understand that property taxes are a critical source of income for many important services in our state, we must also ensure that they don't jeopardize homeownership for vulnerable residents and the stability and generational wealth building that comes with it. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name's William Steinwhittle again. I'm the supervising attorney for the Foreclosure Legal Assistance Project from the Maryland Legal Aid Bureau, and I want to thank Senator McCray for inviting us to testify on this bill, and thank the chairman and the vice chair and the rest of the committee for listening to our testimony. We testify in strong support of Senate Bill 343. The first thing is that the increase from 60,000 to 70,000 gets us much closer to the Maryland median income, which means that still over half of Marylanders won't be eligible for the credit, but it'll still get us a lot closer. Also, the property tax credit will eliminates the adverse consequences to a tax to non-payment of property taxes, which at Maryland Legal Aid we see quite a bit, such as tax sale, reverse mortgage foreclosure, the loss of insurance, and then eventually maybe the loss of the property itself. In addition, Senate Bill 343 will make sure that homeowners are not punished for cost of living increases due to the increase in inflation. As many of you are aware, Social Security in itself increased 8.8% last year, so it's very possible that just a cost of living increase may make a person ineligible. Finally, the Senate Bill 343 will prevent homeowners from being punished for receiving assistance and have that count against them in regards to income. Like, for instance, many homeowners received and legal aid assisted over 100 homeowners in doing so in obtaining the Maryland the Homeowners Assistance Fund. Well, that shouldn't be counted as future income because it was a necessity that came about because of the pandemic, and they shouldn't have their eligibility for future credits eliminated by receiving that assistance. Thank you, and we urge a favorable report on Senate Bill 343.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Zoe Gallagher, and I'm the Policy Associate at Economic Action Maryland, formerly the Maryland Consumer Rights Coalition, a people-centered movement to expand economic rights, housing justice, and community reinvestment in Maryland. I'm here today to urge you to vote favorably towards Senate Bill 343. As a part of our work, Economic Action's Securing Older Adult Resources, or SOAR program, works with older adults to assist them in applying for benefits such as the homeowners and renters tax credit programs. Born and raised in Baltimore City, I saw firsthand the rate at which property values skyrocketed in my own neighborhood. When my parents first purchased our family home in the late 90s, a row home in Hamden, it was $70,000. This year, the median price of a home in Hamden is over $300,000. This is the reality, as you've heard, across Maryland. Considering the steep rise in assessed home values throughout Maryland over the last few decades, it only makes sense to modestly raise the eligibility cutoff from $300,000 to $450,000. Senate Bill 343 also expands eligibility for tenants who are struggling in Maryland. In 2020, Maryland had the 8th highest number of renters who were cost burdened in the country, with nearly half of renters paying more than 30% of their income on housing. Including public assistance cash funds as a part of an individual's gross income to determine eligibility undermines the purpose of these programs to provide financial relief to those most in need. Thank you, and for these reasons, we urge a favorable report on Senate Bill 343. I'd now like to pass it over to my colleague that works directly with these services.
Good afternoon again. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and honorable members of the committee. Again, my name is Jamila Blake, and I'm a SOAR counselor with Economic Action Maryland. As I stated before, SOAR stands for Securing Older Adults with Resources. In my day-to-day work, I coordinate a lot of services for older adults. As a SOAR counselor, I support Senate Bill 0343. I serve retired teachers, nurses, city, state employees, and many of the working class. Some of my clients have been told they did not qualify for the homeowners or renters tax credit program because their income of $60,000 was too high. Some have applied anyway, but only received the tax credit of $1 or $2 off their property tax bill. Others have had to forfeit applying for the renters or homeowners tax credit program because they receive food stamps or other public assistance. This has caused countless clients to lose their homes because they couldn't afford to pay their property taxes. Many of my clients haven't been able to pay for necessary medications or utility bills due to their rent or property tax bill being high. It's painful to see an older adult crying and frustrated because they can't get the assistance that they need to remain in their home. That's what people are already experiencing. Not increasing income eligibility would drive many of our older adults into facing housing loss and further financial instability. This is a critical moment to support Senate Bill 0343. As an older adult advocate and as a social worker, I ask you to please support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Layla Kohler-Frew, and I work with communities on behalf of Habitat Chesapeake. Habitat Chesapeake is one of several affiliates in Maryland, with our region covering Central Maryland. We've been there for 42 years, and we've settled more than 794 folks in homes, and we're continuing to build. Our interest in this bill is what it could do to help change for the better Maryland families' lives. And that's based on our experience in working with people in 30 to 80% area median income range toward achieving homeownership. I was going to tell you a whole lot about what we do with homeowner education, et cetera, but I'm going to spare you, and I will move forward and say that what we do focus on is the long-term sustainability and success of our home buyers and wealth building toward that goal. This is the wealth building itself is part of the why for homeownership in the first place, right? Property taxes, of course, play a key role in the long-term sustainability and success for our home buyers. And that's really keyed up when we do our long-term planning and savings one-on-one with home buyers before they purchase. Because our home buyers fall within a certain AMI range at point of purchase and may still be there for years afterward, the property tax credit is often a key piece to their ability to afford their home over the long term. So we serve to remind our homeowners of the credit and have actually served as a Maryland cash tax prep site in the recent past. So we support our own home buyers and other homeowners in neighborhoods throughout the region. And so due to this, we're keenly aware of the need to move the total household income limit currently set at 60,000 to 70,000, as is set in this bill. So over the past 15 years, the limit has been at 60,000. We are very much so looking forward to seeing this higher limit of 70K. We believe that the successful passage of this bill will be important to affordable homeownership. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, the panel? Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator, I think we have a couple virtuals. There's no one else here to speak in person on this, correct? Okay, yep. Couple of virtuals. I have three. Mr. Harris?
Good afternoon. I'm Allison Harris, Director of the Home Preservation Project of the Pro Bono Resource Center of Maryland. I'm here as a legal services provider of tax sale and other important homeownership related services in Maryland. The importance of ensuring and expanding access to the homeowner's tax credit really can't be overstated, as I'm sure you know from this whole panel here. From my work running tax sale prevention clinics over the last several years, I can tell you that the homeowner's tax credit is the crucial dividing line between those low-income homeowners who are secure in their homes and those who are not. Accessing the credit is the key to preventing home loss of the family home to tax sale for so many vulnerable homeowners. I want to tell you a little bit about the homeowners whose situations would be improved by expansion of access to the credit. The homeowners I see are people who want to pay their taxes. They want to be good citizens of their cities and of their state. Most of them have owned their home for years, and the average I see is 25 years. A lot of those homes are owned outright by heir homeowners who inherited the home from a deceased parent and who do not have a mortgage. When the homeowners first purchased or inherited their homes, they were able to afford their property taxes. However, as the years passed, their property tax bills have risen faster than their incomes, and they struggle to keep up. As we're all aware, this problem has become particularly acute last year when the Maryland property assessments soared and taxes went up accordingly. Incomes, however, did not keep pace. Often the homeowners at risk of losing their homes are people who are just over that line of eligibility because they do work hard, they have decent jobs, they want to pay their taxes. The income and asset limits of the homeowners property tax credit program has not been changed to increase to account for the changing economy. Passing SB 343 would enable far more homeowners to access the property tax credit program, to avoid tax sale, and to keep those homes and that equity they have worked so hard to build. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. The ball?
Yes, thank you. This is Cindy DeBala, to City of Tacoma Park Council member again. Thank you again for allowing me to do this virtually. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm not going to repeat what everybody else said, but I am going to just add that in Tacoma Park, with having a large number of lower income long-term renters and homeowners, we are not alone in feeling the impact of the increases in inflation and property taxes on residents' household budgets, on their ability to pay taxes, and their ability to age in place. We specifically support the modest and long overdue updates to the eligibility criteria that Senator McCray outlined earlier. To these modifications, as you heard, were set many years ago, way before the inflation, rising housing prices, and market changes that we see now. For reference, $70,000 is less than 60% of the area median income for a two-person household in our area. And to the points of some other people, I have had calls from residents who cannot pay their property taxes. I've been council member for six years. This is the first time this is happening. And I have recently heard from residents who were priced out of the program because of a modest COLA increase in their income, in their fixed income. So to conclude, to just say that we are supportive of this program. We would supportive of the changes. It will assist more low-income homeowners and renters to stay in our community and age in place. And we urge a favorable vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for the witness? Very good. Ms. Soma Shakar?
Yes. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for providing the opportunity to participate today. My name is Sheila Somashekar, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Purple Line Corridor Coalition, or PLCC, a collaborative working on equitable development along the Purple Line transit route. With its home at the University of Maryland's National Center for Smart Growth, PLCC has developed a number of research-supported plans and policy priorities that address issues such as housing stability and affordability in gentrifying communities along the transit route. PLCC has a stated goal in its 2023 to 2027 Housing Action Plan to make sure renters and homeowners have the choice to continue to live near the Purple Line. About 1/4 of Purple Line homeowners already struggle to keep up with the costs associated with homeownership, with the burden being even greater for homeowners of color. We support SB 343 as necessary for homeownership preservation and prevention of displacement. The maximum home values and tax credit income thresholds set 15 years ago are outdated for our region. As of 2022, half of the corridor's zip codes had median home prices at or above $450,000. Further, a household income of $72,000 falls well below 60% of area median income along the Purple Line. Increasing the household gross income limit and the allowable maximum value of dwellings that qualify for the program means that more struggling families will have access to the relief available from the tax credit. Passing this legislation is important for the well-being of the communities along the Purple Line, and we encourage your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Jackson. Senator Brooks, there's at least 3 more bills before yours.
Oh,
I don't know if somebody told you to come, but we got several more.
okay, good enough. I'll be back.
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I might bring my panel up.
Please.
If I might, if we could get the Senate Bill 323 first. I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, fellow committee members. For the record, Senator Michael Jackson, representing District 27 on behalf of Senate Bill 323. Senate Bill 323, the piece of legislation that increases income tax subtraction modification for qualifying volunteer fire rescue, police auxiliary officers, and emergency services personnel. Currently, the deduction is $7,000, and this legislation would increase the deduction to $10,000 beginning in 2025 tax year. Presently, professional firefighters and EMS personnel claim a considerable higher deduction at roughly $20,000. This legislation would bring the amounts closer in line. In recent years, our first responders truly have faced challenges and dangers unlike they've have ever seen. In the face of these challenges, the bill would provide a very small tax benefit for these individuals. This is identical to the bill I proposed last year, Senate Bill 94, myself and Senator Bailey, that passed this committee in full Senate last year without opposition. Unfortunately, it ran out of time in the House. We're hoping for a different outcome this year. You will see a piece of legislation that will deal with the auxiliary folks from Senator Bailey that I am also co-sponsoring coming up. With that, Mr. Chair, I'd ask for a favorable committee report, and I will turn it over to my panelists.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman, and the members of the committee. My name is Robert Phillips. I am the legislative chairman for the Maryland State Firefighters Association. We represent 35,000, give or take, volunteer fire and EMS people across the state of Maryland. This bill is a very important bill for us. You'll hear, I'm sure in the course of what you do here in Annapolis and in your home counties, whatnot, volunteerism is falling. It's dwindling and has been for 20 years. It's now reached almost a crisis situation. You heard a term earlier today. I think it was the silver tsunami. And that's a good term, because if you take a look at the age of the volunteer today responding on a call, I use this term lightly, of course. They've got gray hair or no hair. We need new members. We need more members. And this bill is another tool in our toolbox that will allow us to entice people to come in, spend up to 360 hours of training over 2 years, leave their homes, leave their families when they're called, and go do what we have to do. Senator Jackson has been very, very gracious working with us over many years, and we greatly appreciate that. The 7,000 to 10,000 increase we've been after, I think, 4 years now. Everything else is going up, and we're asking people to come in and help provide the services that other people cannot, should not, can't, for free. And this is another way of us saying thank you for coming in and helping us to serve our communities. I'll keep it short to that. I believe you get the idea of what I'm going after here. I would ask and beg for your favorable report on this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Questions? Thank you very much. Thank you. Next bill, Senator Jackson. 321.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, fellow committee members. For the record, Senator Michael Jackson, representing District 27 on behalf of Senate Bill 321. Senate Bill 321 is a piece of legislation that expands enabling legislation that currently only exists in Wycomico County to be statewide enabling legislation. It would allow the issuance of property tax credits for hotels and residential developments that meet minimum affordability requirements. Property tax credits are an essential tool to the incentivization and subsidization of affordable housing development. Currently, Maryland's jurisdictions are limited in their ability to execute property tax credit and payment in lieu of taxes agreements to facilitate the development of affordable housing. This legislation just grants jurisdictions that option. The Wycomico program, which you'll hear about a little more shortly, has proven itself incredibly successful. In consultation with the Department of Housing and Community Development, which you'll also hear from in a second, we've decided to bring this bill forward because we think it will achieve a similar result across the state where counties wish to engage, or the city. I believe this has some folks from the, I believe that my panel from DHCD, as well as Wycomico County, can speak further to this successful program. With that, Mr. Chairman, as we all know, local jurisdictions we're all looking for ways to have more affordable or workplace housing or workforce housing in our communities. And I think this is a program that we can all get behind. So with that, I'd ask for a favorable vote and on this particular bill, and I'll turn it over to DHCH.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee. And I want to thank the Senator for sponsoring this legislation that we asked. So I just want to start off with Maryland is facing a housing crisis. Obviously around the country we are. In the state of Maryland, we're looking at a 96,000 unit shortage currently, and that's the most conservative estimate that we've been able to find. Some of them are higher, over 100,000 to 120,000. So conservatively, we're looking at about 96,000 housing units short. So when we look at that and we look at the affordability crisis, where almost half of renters are paying more than 30% of their income on rent, you are running at an inflection point where there is a crisis. And we think that you need every tool in the toolbox. So this particular bill, you remember a little bit of your history. I believe the Wycomico County and folks from the city of Salisbury were here back in 2021 to get this original piece of legislation for Wycomico County. And you're going to hear from Nick Simpson in a second that worked on a project in Salisbury specifically because of this and because of how successful it is. We want the opportunity to expand it statewide and give that enabling legislation to jurisdictions around the state. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Nick Simpson here to give you a little bit of a background on the project that he worked on that was so successful.
Yeah, so my name is Nick Simpson, and this legislation works because I used it. We did a project in Salisbury, Maryland, which had on Main Street, which had historically not seen any development. As a matter of fact, it's been over 50 years since a new development had hit the downtown area. And so when we passed this, we were able to then attract the $15 million in equity we needed for that particular project. And the legislation really kind of kicked off our building in 2021 in a time where, you know, we thought we were kind of just facing COVID. It became even more critical as inflation and now interest rates have continued to move forward. So you know, we would not have been able to get out of the ground without this legislation, because as developers, we're finding often that when we come down to it, it's a supply and demand issue, but it's also a math issue. We are not getting 1 and 1 to equal 2 right now on a lot of our new construction. And each of the, you know, I think the best part of the legislation here is that each individual municipality, whether it be Ocean City, who's struggling with new developments for J1 visas and having workforce housing for the summer, or whether it's a mall that's going to go vacant and we need to build new housing, each jurisdiction knows best what is necessary to incentivize. And that's what we saw in Wycomico County and in the downtown area. Was our downtown needed to be revitalized, and all of the properties that were looking to invest over $10 million were then given this credit. And we were really pleased to see that not only is our project in the ground and done now, and we had hundreds of jobs along the way, but multiple other follow-on projects are now fully getting permitted. Millions of dollars are going into the pre-development work. And I think that the downtown area is going to be a continued success because of the Horizon program. So certainly would like you to pass it and then bring it back to your local jurisdictions and work with them to make an impact in your guys' communities.
Very good. Thank you. We have a couple folks. Actually, person, we have Kevin. Yeah, I don't see Kevin Canale. Okay.
We are happy that Mako, or are we happy at Mako? I can't remember. I had 2 bills. They were good with one.
Yeah,
they wasn't good with the other.
Yeah, they support this.
We are good. We are good with them. All right.
Yep.
Long day.
Yep.
But look, you know, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I think you can see why we're excited about this opportunity. As a person, as you all know, 1 senator representing 3 counties, and there's a huge shortage everywhere in those 3 counties as well. And this is a tool that would be great for all of our jurisdictions. So.
Yeah, we have a couple people on virtual. Jessica Zuniga.
Yes. Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Jessica Zuniga. I am the owner of Foundation Development Group and Humphrey Management, both located in Howard County. We specialize in the development and management of affordable housing communities. I am also a board member of the Maryland Affordable Housing Coalition. I want to start by commending Senator Jackson for presenting the state with another tool in the toolbox to create affordable housing. As we all know, there is a growing need, and it's an important public policy objective across the state. By alleviating some of the real estate tax burden to affordable housing communities, this bill will reduce operating costs and help more projects reach financial feasibility. Operating costs have spiraled out of control over the last few years, with property insurance going up by 30% or more and increased utility costs. This bill also presents an opportunity for local jurisdictions to encourage the creation of mixed income communities by requiring a limited number of affordable units to take advantage of the tax abatement. These are units that may have otherwise never been affordable. It could also encourage local jurisdictions to review zoning of redevelopment properties and possibly create more targeted opportunities for affordable housing. More high-density residential land suitable for redevelopment will support the new creation of affordable housing. This bill is a win for affordable housing in several ways. I support SB 321 with technical amendments as described in the Maryland Affordable Housing Coalition's written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. And Tom Aid.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm here to speak in support of SB 321. I have seen this in use in Wycomico County, and I'm with Green Street Housing. We're an affordable housing developer focused on development of apartment communities all across the state, and we look forward to having another tool in the toolbox for the development of affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions for anyone? All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Senator.
Chairman, thank you.
Same. 126, Senator Augustine.
Right, thanks, Charlie. Hey. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Vice Chair, members of the committee. Senator Malcolm Augustine here on behalf of Senate Bill 126. What this bill does, colleagues, is it does a temporary pause, as originally drafted. It does a temporary pause, a 1-year pause on the requirement that the Secretary of Transportation withhold a portion of the state's annual operating grant to WMATA. We, based on the 3% cap, which we have in place right now, we need a suspension of this 3% cap because WMATA is facing a real significant fiscal hole in the coming year. That fiscal hole is around, at first beginning was $750 million. And they've worked hard to identify some cost savings within WMATA itself and the other stakeholders within that group, around 320 million or somewhere in that neighborhood. And then they're asking the jurisdictions to provide the other parts of it. And there has been within our budget, our governor's budget, he did put in an additional 150 million into the budget that would represent Maryland's portion of that additional subsidy. There have been signals from the governor of Virginia that they too will put into their budget their portion of this additional subsidy. And the same is, we expect the same to be able to get the same from the District of Columbia. But we need this change in statute. It's a short-term change in statute in order to be able to move the money that has been put forward in the budget. There are a couple of amendments that are contemplated. One would be to extend it out for a couple more years because our governor again has also, although it's not yet in the budget, we've identified the needs for the next couple of years to sort of reset the baseline of the costs that were there. You all probably remember a couple of years ago when there was a significant amount of money that came from the federal government that WMATA didn't actually take the same amount of money from us and therefore move that base artificially low. And so there is this need for a rebasing process. We also have will include, and I will share with the committee, I did not get it back from the amendments office in time, but I'll share with you all some additional potential amendments that we're really talking through and negotiating. There's still a process with all three of us that have more to do with operations at WMATA, deal a little bit with the way that the board chair is placed, and then also some operational things like not that there be any turnbacks and that there not be station closures, which were a part actually of the number that WMATA had that would be covered by this additional subsidy. With that, it's still a little bit of work in process on some of those amendments as we're trying to work with those groups, but I would ask for a favorable report on Senate Bill 126, and the colleagues from MDOT and WMATA are here to also answer any questions for the committee.
Any questions? I'm gonna have more, but I'll take it offline.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, no. Yeah. Understood.
Exactly.
The
The chairman said he wanted short hearings, so I limited the witnesses.
Senator Brooks? Senate Bill 176.
Yes. Chair Gazoni, Vice Chair Roosevelt, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify before you on Senate Bill 176 as a sale and use tax free day on Veterans Day. The purpose of this bill, first, for the record, I'm Senator Ben Brooks. I represent the 10th Legislative District in Baltimore County. Thanks. Yeah. The purpose of this bill is to establish a sales tax free day on Veterans Day for vets who have served in the active duty military, National Guard, or reserve component of the uniformed services. In his first State of the State address, Governor Moore said that we are serious about growing our economy, it begins with making Maryland the best state for veterans. They are lifelong contributors and lifelong taxpayers. And last year, the General Assembly followed up on that commitment by passing the Keep Our Heroes Home Act and the Healthcare for Heroes Act, which lowered the tax burden on veterans' retirement income and their healthcare expenses. Now, to make Maryland the best place for veterans to live, work, and raise a family, we should build on this progress by establishing the tax holiday in honor of those who have bravely served our country and our state. For the nearly 360,000 veterans in our state, a state tax-free day on November 11th would not only provide a tangible benefit, but it would spare financial relief and also add some additional sales to the state. It's a small but yet powerful way to express or to say thanks to our veterans for their commitment and sacrifices so that it could be recognized and valued. The concept of a tax-free holiday is not new to Maryland. Each year, the Comptroller's Office do numerous retail successful implements, which do a tax-free for school supplies and whatnot. Similarly, this bill could positively impact the economy by encouraging spending in the state, and which might otherwise, for veterans who might otherwise refrain. The increase in spending would not only benefit the veterans, but also stimulate local business by extension the state's economy. SB 176 represents an opportunity for Marylanders to lead by example in showing the gratitude to our veterans. It's a practical measure to offer financial relief, stimulates the economy, but more importantly, serves as a symbol of our collective appreciation for those who have served with honor. And for that reason, I request a favorable report on SB 176. And Mr. Chair, I do have a panelist here. And I have two other people who's supposed to be testifying. Is Haley here? Oh, no. Okay, well, I could have my panelists go, and hopefully by that time, the other people who are going to testify will come in. And may I add prior to that, we do have an amendment on this bill, just changing the verbiage from armed forces to uniformed services, and including the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the Public Health Service Commission Corps. So.
Very good. Senator Zucker.
Just a quick question, Mr. Chairman. So this is for veterans that are inactive, not currently serving?
Currently serving and retired or inactive veterans. If you've donned the uniform, then you are a vet.
Because the language says had served. So we'll talk.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Very good, sir.
Good afternoon, Chair Gazzone, Vice Chair Rosebeth, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to appear before you today in support of Senate Bill 176 as amended. My name is Burt Randall, and I appear before you today based on my prior role as a sergeant in the Maryland Army National Guard, which would benefit those individuals that serve and have served. No doubt that you're all acutely aware of Maryland's rich military history, everything from Fort Meade to Andrews Air Force Base to Walter Reed, the U.S. Naval Academy. But perhaps fewer of you are aware of the importance of the Maryland Army or the Maryland National Guard and what those men and women have done over the course of the last several centuries. Maryland Army National Guard, as well as its counterparts in the Air National Guard, also played important roles in George Washington's Continental Army during the American Revolution, preserving the Union in the War of 1812, as well as the American Civil War. They were among the first to land on Omaha Beach on D-Day in World War II, and even more recently in response to the terrorist attacks on 9/11 and the subsequent battles against terrorism. Not only have Marylanders distinguished themselves in fields of battle, but they've also greatly assisted in humanitarian relief missions when called upon. I had the privilege of serving alongside students, teachers, nurses, tradespeople, all of whom were prepared to turn from citizen soldiers to soldier citizens when the need arose. They all did this not with the expectation of riches, since when broken down, they often made less than minimum wage, but out of a sense of duty and service to our country, our state, and our communities. I always tell people that my military service only taught me to appreciate those that did so much more than I did, like Governor Moore, Senator Brooks alongside of me, and the roughly 375,000 Marylanders who are veterans or are currently serving. When you consider how many of those are living in poverty and experience service-related disabilities and how proportionately little we give back, one must wonder whether we couldn't do a little bit more and provide some gratitude, some honor, and a little extra incentive for those future recruits. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? Okay. Oh, you do have a question. Okay.
If this is a tax-free day, is that what it is?
Yes, it is.
Okay, what is it? What kind of purchases is it for?
Well, we've been very generous on this. It's unlimited. Yes.
So you can go buy a car that day and not pay any tax on it?
That is correct. If you're a vet, yes.
Okay.
And believe it or not, if I could say, Senator, believe it or not, other states do allow that for veterans, but they do it year round. And Maryland, we're just doing it on Veterans Day, November 11th. Yes. Yes, you're quite welcome.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Senator.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Senator Young, Louis Young. 4:15. Christina, are you doing this? Are you gonna do his?
Yeah.
No.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Budget and Tax Committee. I am here to present a bill that many of you have heard before. It passed the Frederick County delegation unanimously, so it is a delegation bill. It is a tip jar bill, and it passed in 21 and 22 through this committee. I have tried to understand better why it didn't pass in the House. The first year there was a misunderstanding of the competitive nature of this. Last year, just a timing issue. And I did speak to the chair of the subcommittee. They don't have any issues with it. For those of you who haven't heard the bill before, tip jar is something not where you put tips for waiters and waitresses, but it's a game in which you pick a number. And depending upon the number you choose, you may or may not win, and you may win a lot more. So it already exists. It is legal to have tip jars. It's utilized in hospital, religious, fraternal, civic, veterans organizations. All this bill does is allow it to be electronic so that employee time, waiters, waitresses, bartenders don't have to actually dispense the tip. It can be done, or I guess it's not actually a tip. It's a little piece of paper. They don't have to dispense it. It can be done electronically. So I ask for your support and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to 108.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. For the record, Christina Vigorito on behalf of Senator Bailey, who is trapped right now in JPR. Senate Bill 108 would combine provisions of law establishing income tax deductions for police volunteers, the same as those for volunteer fire, rescue, and EMS members, into a single credit for $7,000. These amounts are currently set at $5,000 for police volunteers and $7,000 for fire and rescue, as well as EMS volunteers. All public safety volunteers should be treated equally. This bill is structured to prevent those two amounts from being different in the future as they've ended up now. The committee and the Senate have passed this legislation each of the last 2 years to raise the police auxiliaries credit to match fire, rescue, and EMS. However, unlike last year's legislation, Senate Bill 108 only combines the two subtraction modifications and doesn't alter anything else. Any other legislation that increases that current $7,000 deduction will necessarily result in an increase for public safety volunteers should Senate Bill 108 become law, meaning the more substantial change for increasing the amount of the deduction that can be addressed future in separate legislation. And on behalf of Senator Bailey, I respectfully request a favorable report.
Thank you. You have a couple of witnesses there. Yes, Stanley, Samaraja.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the committee. My name is Stan Samarazic. I appear as the legislative liaison for the Maryland Natural Resources Police Reserve Officers Association. I've had the privilege of serving as a reserve officer for 17 years. As Christina has articulated, this bill addresses what I think is a discriminatory effect of the current statute 10-208. It's a bifurcated statute, and historically in the past, what's happened is the volunteer firefighters, EMT, rescue squad members have gotten a raise, and the police auxiliary and police reserve officers have been left by the wayside. We've been stuck at $5,000 a year since 2018, despite our attempts to get an increase. And what this bill does, it simply makes sense, puts everyone under the statute in the category of public service volunteers, and going forward, we all be treated equally. In terms of economics, in 2023, the Natural Resources Police Reserve Officers, 155 of them, served more than 16,100 duty hours.
based on data I got from DNR, if we took this cost at the compensation level for a first-year uniformed officer, the cost to the state would exceed $775,000. So our members produce a tremendous economic benefit as volunteers to the state. And we're simply asking that we be put on a parity with the EMTs and the volunteer firefighters. We ask you to support the bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and the committee. My name is Patricia Brennan. I am currently an Anne Arundel County Reserve Officer. I'm here today to advocate that all volunteer reserve auxiliary officers standing be imparted with the current status of the volunteer fire, rescue, and emergency services currently listed in Bill, excuse me, in Senate Bill 108 under the Public Safety Organization means section. It's undeniable when you look at the cost value analysis that the value that volunteer reserve auxiliary officers saved the state and the county just last year alone $496,309.52, providing a huge savings for the overall budget. The tax deduction is a major importance in the recruitment and retention of individuals in our organization. During the last 2 years, Anne Arundel County Reserve officers have participated in 28,111 hours of service that covered 221 events throughout the county. At current, there are 38 active reserve officers with 22 vacancies. In this capacity, the Reserve Officer Program allows the full-time, regular paid Anne Arundel County Police Force to be actively engaged in serving and protecting the public. The Anne Arundel County Reserve Officer Program was established in 1982. This program was a way of civil-minded individuals who could serve their community in a uniform capacity to be of assistance to the Anne Arundel County Police Force. Reserve officers support the police force in many areas such as traffic control, weather emergency call-outs, and unforeseen devastating tragedies. Reserve officers also respond to local requests in support of community relations, functions, and events for over 40 years. The application process to become a reserve officer is an in-depth process. One has to submit paperwork for a background check, fingerprinting, and other requirements before completing the civilian academy, in preparation for starting both formal classroom and on-the-job training in police procedures. After successfully completing the application process and the required training, the reserve officer has to complete a minimum of 192 hours of service, with many reserve officers exceeding this minimum requirement. At times, being a reserve officer, it is stressful and physically demanding. We are advocating that reserve and auxiliary officer organizations be given the same respect, benefits, and status of the volunteer fire, rescue, and emergency services listed in the current Bill 108 be given. Thank you for your time. And just want to end with the reserve officers want to be involved and support their community and to make a difference. Thank you for your time and support with this bill.
Thank you very much. Any questions? And thank you for your service to the community. Appreciate it very much. It's our privilege.
Thank you.
We don't have anybody on. You have a virtual? You have a virtual? We don't, I saw somebody pop up. It's for the next one. All right, 183.
Good afternoon again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Christina Vigorito, Chief of Staff for Senator Jack Bailey, presenting Senate Bill 183 on his behalf. Senate Bill 183 expands the prompt payment statute for state construction projects to ensure that suppliers are compensated appropriately and quickly in the same manner as currently required for other subcontractors. Senator Bailey is introducing this bill following discussions with many residents in St. Mary's County who own businesses which have worked on state highway projects, who have not been receiving compensation for their labor or materials in a timely manner. When our office inquired with State Highway Administration on their behalf, we were essentially informed that they were not entitled under state law to prompt payment because these businesses were considered to be suppliers. Senator Bailey has since heard from many businesses that they are no longer interested in doing business with the state because they are not certain they will receive their payments in a timely manner, when this used to be the opposite, where those small businesses wanted to work on state contracts because they thought they had the assurance of their prompt payment as well. Existing state law requires the prompt payment of subcontractors under state procurement contracts, but this statute does not clearly define or include protections for those that are considered suppliers. Notably, there are provisions of the real property article, including suppliers, under the protections of the prompt payment statute that is applicable to private projects. This legislation is intended to resolve that inconsistency and ensure that our local businesses that do work for the state or with the state are compensated for their work and materials in the timely manner that they deserve. There are a couple testimony submissions that have come in that are favorable with amendments. Senator Bailey has been in discussion with them to try to figure out the best and appropriate way to address those groups' concerns to move forward with some sort of an amendment. But we respectfully request a favorable report. Thank you.
Is this Mr. Sloan? Sloan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Am I coming through clearly?
Yep. Fire away.
Good afternoon to you and the rest of the members there. We had been working on this Route 5 widening as a material supplier through the general contractor that was has a contract, and we had times, and then as the volume increased, why we had to stop doing business with them. And we talked to a man up there in SHA, and he tried to find a way, but it didn't work out. So he suggested we sue them. And meanwhile, we got a copy of the bond, and we put a lien on the bond for 55-some thousand. And the bonding company was not very responsive at all. We never heard back from them. I also talked to Mr. Reed Stonesteifer from SHA District 5 engineer of construction, and he gave much effort to try to find a way, but he said there was no way that they could force us to be paid or force a bonding company to pay us. Therefore, their other result is to go back to the lawsuit. So we would encourage support for this bill so that small contractors like us that are in the county can get paid for materials we supply. And thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any questions? Thank you very much. Oh, Senator Sullivan.
No, Mr. Chair, I want to thank the senator and his assistant that did a great job. She needs to do it more often. I'll let him know that. But anyway, we had a problem similar to this with contractors doing work for the federal government and subcontractors working with them not getting paid. And so we got help through our federal partners, and myself worked together to make sure that they did get paid. And so we see this is an ongoing problem, and we need to just make sure it doesn't happen anymore because, you know, these people are working hard, and we have good contractors doing good work for the state and our federal government. We need to keep them. And the only way we can is when they do the work, they need to get paid. So I want to thank you for the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay. 173.
Hello and good afternoon, Chair Gazzoni and Vice Chair Rosapep and members of the Budget and Taxation Committee. I am not Senator Arthur Ellis. My name is Amani Beecham and I serve as his Chief of Staff. And we represent District 28, Charles County. It's about 90% of that county. So I'm here today to present Senate Bill 173, Consolidated Transportation Program, Indian Head Highway, Conversion into Limited Access Highway. So the purpose of this bill is to require the Secretary of Transportation to include sufficient funds in the CTP program for fiscal year 2025 and beyond for the planning, design, and reconstruction necessary for the conversion of Maryland Route 210, also known as Indian Head Highway, in Prince George's County into a limited access highway, and requires by December 31st, 2024, a report to the Maryland General Assembly on a timeline and the estimated costs for the conversion of Route 210 into said limited access highway. So I know the bill is fairly short here, so we'll have a little bit of a definition of what a limited access highway is for you all. So these are roads that are designed to allow traffic to move more freely, and the term limited access ultimately means that there are no intersections on the roads. Instead, drivers must use ramps at designated points in order to get on or off the highway. And additionally, these highways do not include traffic lights. Limited access highways have been found to be safer than other types of roads because they require fewer stops and less time waiting at traffic lights or stop signs. So turning Route 210 into a limited access highway would pretty much eliminate that current gridlock that exists during peak traffic hours. If you all have traveled 210 before, it gets a little crazy. So in closing, thank you to Chair Gazzoni and Vice Chair Rosapep for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 173 on Senator Ellis's behalf, and I ask for your favorable report.
Thank you very much. Oh,
Thank you.
Senator Benson, you got a question?
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you all, 210, 210, that is a big problem.
It is. It
I'm
absolutely
just
is.
wondering what you all are proposing is really going, I don't even know what we should, you know what? I've never seen anything like it. I get on 210 and I end up with heartburn. It is just unbelievable.
Yes, ma'am.
And lots of money, Mr. Chairman, have been spent on this highway. I mean, do you think that what you all are proposing is going to really help?
I sure hope so. I definitely hope so. I think it would get rid of, like I said, get rid of that gridlock that exists there. In my personal experience, I travel 210 probably almost every day of the week to get to work.
It's terrible.
It's bad. And stopping at those traffic lights really kind of blocks the intersection. So taking them out would pretty much allow us to go straight through. So
I'm just hoping it will help. I'm telling you.
I sure hope so too.
Kind of small.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Gazzoni.
Great job.
Thank you.
All right, that is a wrap. 23.